Chapter 129. Just as Li Mu had guessed, this ghost's realm had not reached the spirit realm, so there was no need for him to hide. When the little female ghost saw Li Mu, she said in shock, "Immortal master." A ghost claw had already grown out of the broken arm of the evil ghost. The ghost stared at Li Mu and said coldly, "Human cultivator." It was rather afraid of Bai in Li Mu's hand. It glanced at the ghosts in the cave and said sternly, "Kill him and leave his soul behind." After receiving the order from the evil ghost, other than the 2 female ghosts, the other 10 ghosts in the cave swarmed towards Li Mu. With a thought from Li Mu, Bai flew out again. These ghosts who were only at the resentful spirit realm were pierced through by Bai. Their spiritual bodies directly collapsed. When they gathered together again, they were already more than half illusory. None of them dared to charge forward again. When the evil ghost saw this, it roared and pounced towards Li Mu with 2 steel forks in its hands. Li Mu raised his sword to meet it. The sound of weapons colliding could be heard in the cave. The steel forks were filled with ghostly chi. It was obvious that they were not ordinary weapons. However, the evil ghost did not have any method to fight. From time to time, it would be slashed by Li Mu. Although its cultivation was high and could recover quickly, it was still angry to the point of shouting. At this moment, Li Mu knew that Li Qing had put in a lot of effort for him. In a battle of the lower 3 realms, the depth of one's cultivation or magic power was not the decisive factor for victory. Although the evil ghost's cultivation was high, it could not gain any advantage at this moment. The evil spirit was no match for Li Mu in close combat, so its body simply exploded, forming an extremely dense ghostly fog, which instantly filled the entire cave. Li Mu stood in place without moving. He knew that the ghost was hiding in the black fog, waiting to give him a fatal blow. His lips moved slightly, and his body emitted a dazzling golden light, repelling the black fog 3 meters away. "So it's a monk!" The evil spirit screamed in fear. It seemed to realize that Li Mu was not someone to be trifled with. It shouted in the fog, "Monk, listen to me. I am a ghost general under the command of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. Take this man away and we will mind our own business. How about that?" The evil spirit's voice exposed his position. As soon as he finished speaking, a thunderclap exploded from the direction of his voice. After the drastic increase in his mana, Li Mu's usage of the thunder technique had already reached the stage where he could determine the location by listening to sound. He said angrily, "You're the monk. Your whole family are monks." After the lightning, the black fog dissipated. The evil spirit lay paralyzed on the ground, its aura extremely weak. Li Mu was slightly surprised in his heart. That bolt of lightning had clearly struck him, but it didn't cause his soul to scatter. This evil ghost could be considered to have some ability, however, it didn't matter. It was just a matter of adding another bolt of lightning. He held his sword and walked in the direction of the evil spirit. The evil spirit's face was filled with shock. It shouted, "I am under the command of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. If you dare to kill me, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon will not let you off." Boom! Another bolt of lightning fell and landed on the evil spirit's body. He didn't even have time to scream before his ghost body directly collapsed. The king's soul was scattered by the sudden intrusion of a human cultivator. The remaining dozen or so ghosts in the cave were frightened and fled in all directions. Under Li Mu's heaven's eye, these ghosts all carried resentment and evil aura. At a glance, it was obvious that they were not good ghosts. Li Mu's hand seal did not dissipate. Lightning flashed in the cave. Soon, the dozen or so wraiths here disappeared from his eyes. In the cave, there was only a large amount of soul power left. The 2 female ghosts hugged each other tightly and trembled. Li Mu withdrew his hand seal and put Bai back into the scabbard. Looking at the 2 female ghosts, he said, "So it was this evil spirit who ordered you?" The little female ghost's body trembled uncontrollably. She said in a trembling voice, "Immortal master, don't be afraid. You haven't harmed anyone. I won't kill you." Li Mu waved his hand and asked, "How did you work for this ghost?" Seeing that Li Mu had no intention of killing them, the big female ghost was slightly relieved. She said, "Benefactor, We were originally lonely souls in this mountain. We were kidnapped by this evil spirit and were asked to absorb the yang qi of mortals for cultivation. Thank you for killing this evil spirit and freeing us. Li Mu nodded. Thinking of the evil spirit's words before it died, he asked, Who is Chu Jiang of Gojoseon? The big female ghost shook her head and said, We only know that this evil spirit claimed to be the 18th ghost general under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. We don't know who Chu Jiang of Gojoseon is. The 18th ghost general. This ghost general was actually not weak. If it wasn't for Li Mu, it would be difficult for ordinary cultivators in the soul-condensing realm or the soul-condensing realm to deal with it without special means. Such a powerful ghost was only ranked 18th. This Chu Jiang of Gojoseon was at least in the middle realm. Whether he was a human, a ghost, or a demon, Li Mu was no match for him. Li Mu put this matter aside for now. He collected the remnant soul energy of these ghosts and said to the two female ghosts, Go and find a place to cultivate quietly. Don't absorb the yang qi of mortals. If other cultivators see you next time, they won't let you go so easily. The big female ghost was grateful and promised, We swear to Immortal Master that we won't harm anyone again. The little female ghost looked up and asked, Sister, where else can we go? I'm afraid we'll be caught again. Li Mu looked at the two female ghosts. It was indeed difficult for these lonely souls to survive. Righteous cultivators wanted to get rid of them. Heretical cultivation and demonic cultivators would capture them to refine magic tools. Even the more powerful ones wanted to devour them to improve their cultivation. These two female ghosts had good natures, but their strength was not high. If they were left to wander around, they would not have a good ending. Li Mu thought for a moment and said, If you don't have a place to go, I can recommend a place for you. This young immortal master didn't kill them, so he definitely wouldn't harm them. The big female ghost was delighted. She quickly pulled the little female ghost and kowtowed to Li Mu, saying, Thank you, immortal master. Thank you, Li Mu said. From here, follow the official road and go east. You should be able to reach Yangqiu County before dawn. When you arrive, go to the Bay of Clearwater and find a girl called Su-hee. Tell her that Li Mu told you to find her. Thinking that Su-hee might not have come out of seclusion yet, Li Mu added, That place is very safe. When you get there, if she doesn't appear, you just have to wait patiently. She will take the initiative to find you. Su-hee was alone in the Bay of Clearwater. She was empty and lonely. Before, there was a snake accompanying her. After Bai Inshin left, there was no one to talk to her. She had complained many times that Li Mu did not visit her enough. Li Mu sent the two ghosts over. They were both ghosts. Su-hee could have a companion and the two ghosts could have a backer. They would not become lonely souls. It was the best of both worlds. The big female ghost thought for a moment and kowtowed to Li Mu. She said gratefully, Thank you, immortal master. We will go now. Even if they were to hide in the deep mountains or forests, there was still a chance that they would be discovered by powerful demonic ghosts. She did not know what would happen after reaching the Bay of Clearwater, but it was definitely better than wandering outside. After the two female ghosts thanked Li Mu, they floated away. Li Mu walked to the side of the young man on the ground. He leaned over and pushed his shoulder, saying, Wake up. The young man's eyebrows twitched. His face suddenly revealed a frightened expression. He shouted, Ghosts, there are ghosts. Li Mu said indifferently, Those evil ghosts have been killed by me. You can go home. The young man looked around in fear. Sure enough, he found that those terrifying ghosts in the cave had disappeared. In front of him stood a young man. He had a handsome face and held a long sword in his hand. He was wearing a bailiff uniform, which gave him a great sense of security. His heart gradually calmed down. He looked at Li Mu and asked in a low voice, Was it you who saved me? Li Mu said, Fortunately, I was free tonight. Otherwise, you would have been eaten by those evil ghosts. He slowly walked out of the cave. The young man crawled up from the ground and followed behind him. Li Mu walked out of the cave and asked, Where do you live? It was the middle of the night. If he let the young man go back alone and met some evil ghosts on the way, Li Mu's efforts would be in vain. The young man said, I live in the county town. County town? Li Mu did not expect such a coincidence. He grabbed the young man's shoulder and said, "Then come with me. I will take you back tomorrow." The young man's body rose into the air. Li Mu carried him in the direction of the inn. On the way back to the inn, Li Mu could not help but sigh. A few months ago, he was also grabbed by Li Qing. At that time, a small vengeful spirit could take his life. Now, he could kill a third-level evil ghost all by himself. He could truly hold his own. Chapter 130. By the time Li Mu brought the young man back to the inn, it was already past midnight. The inn was already closed for the day. He let the young man sleep on the bed while he sat down cross-legged to refine the souls of the dead ghosts. The cultivation method of the second level of Taoism was to continuously condense and strengthen the three souls. Apart from refining the soul on a fixed day every month, one could also borrow the soul power of others. In theory, as long as one had enough courage and soul power, refining the soul and condensing the soul within a month would not be a problem. However, the realm that was created this way was just a facade. The mana was also like renuance. Fighting with cultivators of the same level was suicide. Li Mu did not plan to condense the soul too early. He planned to completely refine the soul power to the extreme and use it for himself before preparing to condense the spirit. The youth sat on the bed and asked Li Mu, "Are you a constable from the county capital?" Li Mu nodded and said, "You can say so." The youth lay down on the bed and soon the sound of steady breathing could be heard. Li Mu lowered his head to take a look. Most of the time, the clothes he was wearing gave people a sense of security. In the Great Zhou, being a constable was never a lowly job. They received the lowest salary and did the most dangerous things. They often faced death and silently protected the safety of the people. This was the reason why the people trusted them. In the beginning, Li Mu did not care about the identity of a constable. His original goal was to stay in the county government and stay by Li Qing's side to protect his life. But when he saw a life that should have been gone come back to life in his hands, the satisfaction he felt was something he had never experienced in storytelling or acting. Perhaps this was the meaning of this job. In the morning, when Li Mu opened the door to his room, Li Si also came out from next door. He rubbed his head and held the door. He said in surprise, "That's strange. I slept for so long yesterday. Why am I still so tired?" Li Mu took out the porcelain bottle that Xuandu gave him. There was one last pill left in it and he threw it to Li Si. Li Si took it and asked, "What is this?" This pill didn't have much effect on Li Mu, so Li Mu casually said, "It's for nourishing the body." Li Si poured out the pill from the porcelain bottle and tossed it into his mouth. A moment later, he looked at Li Mu in surprise and asked, "This thing is not bad. Do you have more?" "No." Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Pack up and get ready to go." A moment later, Li Si stood downstairs and saw the youth who followed Li Mu out. He curiously asked, "Where did he come from?" Li Mu said, "I picked him up last night and sent him back to the county town." Li Si sized up the youth a few times, but didn't ask much. After boarding the carriage, he sat in a corner with a worried expression. The closer they got to the county town, the deeper the worry on his face. On the way to the county town, Li Mu asked the youth a few simple questions. He learned that his surname was Su and his name was Hao. His family had a small business in the county town. Yesterday, he snuck out of his house and ran out of the town to play. Unknowingly, he played until it was dark and accidentally lost his way. Coincidentally, he encountered two ghosts and was captured. He almost became the ghost's food. The carriage traveled for a few hours and finally arrived at the county town at noon. As the capital of the North County, the county town looked much more imposing than Yangqiu County Town from the outside. The city walls were tall and the gate could allow two carriages to pass side by side. There was an endless stream of people at the gate. The coachman drove the carriage into the county town. Li Mu lifted the curtain and said to the youth, "We've arrived at the county town. Quickly go back. Don't run around alone in the future. The next time you meet those things, no one can save you." The youth bowed to Li Mu and thanked him. He jumped off the carriage and ran into the crowd. The coachman stopped a passerby and asked for the location of the county office. Then he started the carriage again. The county town of the North County was directly managed by the county governor. There was only one county office in the city. In the office, there were the county governor, the county deputy, and the county lieutenant. The county governor was responsible for all the affairs in the county. The county deputy's duty was to assist the county governor. As for the county lieutenant, he was mainly responsible for the security of the county. Li Si leaned against the carriage and sighed again. Li Mu said, "Didn't you say last time that Miss Chin was a good girl? Why are you sighing now?" "She is a good girl, but I didn't say that I would marry her." Li Si sighed and said, "My life plan is not like this." Li Mu said in surprise, "You have a life plan?" Li Si glanced at him and said, "If you don't even have a life plan, what's the point of living?" Even Li Si had a life plan. Li Mu thought about it and felt that he had to plan his life well. He was very clear about the short-term plan for his life. He had to condense the last 2 souls and become a complete person to make up for the final flaw on the path of cultivation. During this period of time, he had been trapped by the half-year deadline and had no time to plan his future. He looked at Li Si and asked, "What is your life plan?" Li Si said, "I want to play for a few more years. When I'm 30 years old, I'll find an honest girl to marry." "How did the honest girl offend you?" Li Mu spat and said, "She's really a jerk." Li Si glanced at him and mocked, "Do you think you're better than me?" Li Mu asked, "What's wrong with me?" Li Si snorted and said, "If you don't like a girl, you shouldn't be too good to her. Otherwise, you won't be able to pay off this debt of love in this lifetime. Boss, Lady Lu, that little maid, and the girl you missed before you left, how much do you owe?" Li Si looked at Li Mu with disdain and said, "I'm just playing around with those girls in the brothel. I only enter their bodies and never enter their lives. What about you? You treat these girls too well, but you don't take the initiative, refuse, make promises, or take responsibility. Between the two of us, who's the bad guy?" Li Si actually thought that he was inferior to him. This made Li Mu somewhat difficult to accept. He looked at Li Si and asked, "Boss is good to me and I'm good to her. Is that wrong?" Li Si said, "That's right." Li Mu said again, "Lady Lu is also my benefactor. She's good to me and I'm good to her. Is that wrong?" Li Si shook his head and said, "That's also right." Li Mu said again, "I treat Wan Wan as my sister. I'm good to my sister. Is that wrong?" Li Si looked at him and said indifferently, "Do you want to see Boss get married? Do you want to see Lady Lu get married? Do you want to see your sister get married?" Li Mu thought seriously and looked at Li Si with guilt. He said, "I'm sorry. I'm not a good person." Li Si patted him on the shoulder and said earnestly, "I advise you to cherish the person in front of you. Cherish him while he's still by your side. Don't wait until it's too late to regret when you lose him." Li Mu thought for a moment and asked, "You mean I should have expressed my feelings to Boss at that time?" Li Si shook his head and said, "It's useless. Your relationship with Boss hasn't reached that stage. Boss won't stay for you and you can't keep her." Li Mu sighed softly. In fact, he knew this better than Li Si. He asked again, "So you mean I should cherish Lady Lu?" "I want you to cherish me." Li Si grabbed his arm and said, "If something happens to me, who will care about your relationship?" Chapter 131. Li Mu used to feel pretty good about himself, but it was Li Si who constantly reminded him and made him recognize himself. Li Si's words made sense. Li Mu had never been in love in his 2 lifetimes. Without Li Si, he would have one less relationship mentor. But an arm can't twist a leg. Whatever the governor wanted to do to Li Si, he couldn't do anything. He could only comfort Li Si by saying, "Life is like that. Since you can't resist, then just close your eyes and enjoy it." As his voice fell, the coachman lifted the curtain and said, "Sirs, we've arrived at the county office." Li Mu jumped off the carriage and dragged Li Si down as well. After showing their transfer orders at the entrance of the county office, the bailiff smiled and said, "You're new colleagues. If you go in now, you should be able to make it in time." Li Mu asked, "Make it in time for what?" The bailiff smiled mysteriously and said, "You'll know when you go in." Li Mu and Li Si were led by this person into the county office and came to a very spacious courtyard. In the courtyard, there were more than 10 people standing neatly. These people were all men and they were all wearing official uniforms. Li Mu looked over and found that they were all in the soul condensing realm. At the front was a middle-aged man wearing a purple official's uniform. He was actually in the soul condensing realm. The bailiff walked to the middle-aged man's side and pointed at Li Mu and Li Si. He said, "Constable Zhao, these two are colleagues transferred from Yangqiu County. They just arrived at the county office. Do you want them to participate in this entry test?" The middle-aged man looked at the two of them and said, "The two of you, stand in line." Although Li Mu and Li Si didn't know what the entry test was, they still stood with the 10 people obediently. The middle-aged man only said one sentence from beginning to end. When Li Mu and Li Si stood in line, he took out a simple bronze mirror from his chest and poured his Fa Li into the bronze mirror. The bronze mirror suddenly shot out a white light. He raised the bronze mirror and allowed the white light to flash before everyone's eyes. Li Mu felt that the light was blinding, and he subconsciously closed his eyes. When he opened them again, the scene around him had changed. Illusion? This was not the first time Li Mu had been dragged into an illusion. After a brief moment of surprise, he began to observe his surroundings. He was in an unfamiliar room. There was no door in this room, and there were windows on all 4 sides. In front of Li Mu was a huge box. He didn't know what the so-called entry test was, but he insisted on dealing with all changes by remaining unchanged. He stood there quietly, motionless. Clang. Li Mu stood still, but the box in front of him suddenly opened. Li Mu looked over and found that the box was filled with silver. A voice in his heart told him to take a step forward, take a step forward. As long as he took a step forward, all the silver would be his. It would allow him to live in luxury for the rest of his life, and enjoy glory, splendor, wealth, and rank. As this voice sounded, Li Mu's heart began to throb. At the same time, he found that his resistance to money was gradually decreasing. Li Mu finally understood what the Yamen runner's test was. In an illusion, it was easy to lose one's mind. The various temptations of the human world would be infinitely magnified here. Those with a weak will would sink into temptation and desire. However, this level of temptation was something that Li Mu could easily resist without chanting the clear heart mantra. One is marked by the company one keeps. He had been by Lu Hanyan's side for a long time, so he was not tempted by a box of silver. Lu Hanyan, this golden mountain, had swayed before Li Mu's eyes every day, but he had not been tempted. How could he be tempted by this box of silver? The silver in the box turned into gold and jewels before Li Mu's eyes for a while. Li Mu looked at it expressionlessly, feeling a little bored. At this moment, among the dozen or so people in the county Yamen's courtyard, many of them looked hesitant. In the end, 2 of them could not help but take a step forward. As soon as they took a step forward, their bodies trembled and they suddenly fell to the ground. Constable Zhao looked at them coldly and said, "If you can't resist the temptation of money, even if you become a Yamen runner, you will still be an evil official who takes advantage of the common people. Men, take these 2 away and send them back to their original places of residence. They will never be hired again." His gaze swept around and paused for a moment on the faces of the 3 people. One of the youths had a determined expression and was not tempted by money. The other 2 were the 2 Yamen runners who had just arrived from Yangqiu County. The more handsome one's expression did not change at all. It was as if the silver could not arouse his interest at all. This made Constable Zhao's expression change. Although the youth was not tempted, he was obviously trying his best to restrain himself. As for this young man, he was not interested in money at all. As for the last one, he seemed to be a little absent-minded. He had a worried expression on his face and no one knew what he was thinking. Constable Zhao even wondered if he had seen the transmogrified treasure box. Li Mu was in the illusion and watching the things in the box change. Just as he was feeling bored, his vision suddenly blurred and he appeared in the courtyard again. He tilted his head to look and realized that the person who had been standing on his left had disappeared. He must have failed the test and been taken away because he could not resist the temptation of money. The rest of the people also realized that the two people beside them were missing and secretly sighed in relief. They had not felt good in the illusion just now and had almost failed to resist the temptation. Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and asked, "The gold and silver treasures in the treasure box are enough to make you rich for the rest of your life. Why are you not tempted?" Li Mu replied, "I am not interested in money." "What a strange person." Constable Zhao shook his head and looked at the youth again, asking, "What about you?" The youth's expression was firm as he said, "As an official of the Great Zhou, I must set myself as an example. I will not bribe, accept bribes, or accept ill-gotten gains." That's right. As a constable, you must resist the temptation of money. Constable Zhao nodded approvingly and finally looked at Li Si, asking, "What's your reason?" Li Si came back to his senses and asked, "What's the reason?" Constable Zhao asked, "The gold and silver treasures in the treasure box, were you not tempted for a moment?" Li Si was stunned and asked, "What treasure box? What treasures?" Constable Zhao looked at him in surprise. He had tested countless new people. Among these people, there were those with strong wills who were not tempted by the gold and silver treasures at all. There were also those with weak wills who were completely immersed in their desires. This was the first time he had encountered someone who was distracted in the illusion. But no matter what, he was not tempted by money. He had passed this test. Constable Zhao did not think that he could pass the second test. The first test to become a constable was money, and the second test was women's lust. This person's yang qi was insufficient and his kidneys were empty. He must be extremely lustful. In the past, people like this would be the first to be eliminated in the second test. He looked at the people who had passed the first test and said, "Congratulations to all of you for passing the first test. I hope that in the future, you will be able to resist the temptation of money and always maintain a just heart." He cleared his throat and continued, "Next, you will undergo the second test. If you can pass the second test, you will officially become a constable of the county government." Constable Zhao picked up the bronze mirror and flashed it in front of everyone's eyes again. The scene in front of Li Mu changed again. He found himself in a room filled with pink fog. Opposite him, a woman wearing a light veil was looking at him with seductive eyes. The woman raised her arm delicately and beckoned to Li Mu. Her breath smelled like orchids and she said in a tender voice, "Young master, come." Being in the illusion, one's resistance to beauty would be greatly reduced. Without chanting the mind-clearing mantra, Li Mu's heart began to have the urge to take a step forward. At this moment, Lu Hanyan's figure unconsciously appeared in his mind. Thinking of Lu Hanyan and looking at the woman again, Li Mu suddenly felt dull and dull. Whether it was in terms of appearance or figure, the two of them were worlds apart. It would have been better if they did not compare. Now that they were compared, he suddenly lost all his urges. Chapter 132. In the county yamen, Constable Zhao stood in front of the crowd and carefully observed their expressions. Most of the remaining people looked like they were struggling with their inner desires. After a while, two of them could not help but take a step forward and collapse to the ground. Constable Zhao looked regretful and waved his hand, "Take them away." A few bailiffs came forward and carried the two of them away. When Constable Zhao walked to the front of the youth, he saw that his face was flushed but his expression was still firm. His gaze was once again filled with admiration. He walked to Li Mu and saw that his expression was normal. He was not affected by the illusion at all. Not only that, but there was also a trace of reminiscence on his face. Constable Zhao praised in his heart. This young constable from Yangqiu County had a firm mind that was different from ordinary people. Whether it was the temptation of money or beauty, nothing could move him in the slightest. This kind of person, whether he was an official or an official, would be a clear stream. I wonder what he's reminiscing about. Could it be his wife? To be able to think of such a method to break through the illusion, he must be a love-struck person. Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and felt very gratified. This young constable from Yangqiu County had a firm mind and a high level of cultivation. He could be put to an important position. And that youth's mind was not bad either. He was a promising talent. With a bit of training, he could be of great use. Finally, he looked at Li Si and his face was filled with astonishment. He had thought that this person would be the first to succumb to the temptation of beauty. He did not expect him to hold on for so long. Not only was there no hesitation or struggle on his face, he even had a mocking expression. It was as if he did not care about the temptation of the illusion. Constable Zhao withdrew the illusion and looked at Li Si with astonishment. Then he said to the rest of the people, "Congratulations on passing the second test. As an official, you must not only withstand the test of wealth, but also the temptation of beauty. Your performance was very good. From now on, you are officially constables of the county yamen." Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and relaxed expressions appeared on their faces. At this moment, Constable Zhao continued, "However, before you enter the yamen, I still have to give you a third test. Those who can pass the third test and perform outstandingly can become my assistant and be exempted from the duty of patrolling the streets." Li Mu was quite tempted when he heard this. Patrolling the streets was a very time-consuming thing. If he could avoid patrolling the streets, he would have enough time to do his own things. He just didn't know what the third test was. If he couldn't get through it on his own, he could only rely on the clear heart art. Constable Zhao raised the bronze mirror again. Li Mu's vision suddenly turned pitch black. A ferocious and terrifying ghost face appeared from the darkness and flew towards Li Mu. The illusion could magnify his fear. Li Mu subconsciously tightened his grip on Bai, but then he realized it was just an illusion. He let the ghost face pass through his body. At the same time, several figures in the courtyard couldn't help but take a step back the moment the ghost shadow pounced on them, directly leaving the illusion. That evil ghost was at least a third realm ghost. In their fear, they couldn't control their actions. When they left the illusion and observed their surroundings, they finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, they still had lingering fears. Constable Zhou looked at them and said, "As a constable, other than being able to resist all kinds of temptations, you also need to have a certain amount of courage. Those who are afraid of death can never become good constables. Your minds are still firm, but your courage still needs to be honed." A few of them looked guilty. They looked at the others who were still standing at the same spot with admiration. Li Mu was in the darkness. All kinds of demonic ghosts kept jumping out from all around him. Sometimes they were repulsive evil ghosts. Sometimes they were zombies with murderous auras. Sometimes they were ferocious demons. In the illusion, the auras of these demonic ghosts were extremely real. When one's fear was magnified, they couldn't even distinguish between illusion and reality. However, whether it was the core condensation realm demonic cultivators, jumping zombies, or even the primordial spirit of the Dongxian heretical cultivation, Li Mu had fought with them before. These illusions couldn't disturb his state of mind at all. As time passed, a few more people were scared away by the illusion. Only 3 people remained standing at the same spot. One of them was the youth. Although he looked scared, his expression was still determined. The other person was a skinny youth with a pale face. His expression was wooden, but he didn't look like he was scared by the demonic ghosts in the illusion. Instead, he looked like he had seen through life and death. The last person's expression was very calm. He didn't seem to be afraid of the demonic ghosts at all. Under everyone's gaze, he didn't retreat. Instead, he took a step forward and directly stepped out of the illusion. Constable Zhao put away the bronze mirror and looked at Li Mu with admiration. He said, "What guts? Could it be that you fought with these evil beings in Yangqiu County?" Li Mu nodded and didn't deny it. The demonic ghosts in the illusion were only at the 3rd realm. The zombies were just jumping zombies. Li Mu had seen 4th realm demonic cultivators, soul realm demonic cultivators, and even flying stiff. How could he be scared by those things? At this moment, Li Si and the youth also woke up from the illusion. The youth's body was already drenched in sweat. His face was very pale as he stood there, panting heavily. Constable Zhao patted his shoulder and said, "With your cultivation, it's already very good that you could last this long." His gaze finally landed on Li Si. If the previous 2 people were both cultivators with strong wills who didn't fear temptations or demonic ghosts, then this person was just a mortal. Constable Zhao still couldn't understand why the county government would promote such a person from the county government, but it was precisely such a mortal who could pass the 3 tests without any ripples. Similarly, he wasn't tempted by money or beauty. He had enough courage to pass the tests that most soul-condensing realm cultivators couldn't pass. This also showed that he wasn't that ordinary. Constable Zhao looked suspicious and asked Li Si, "Aren't you afraid of death?" Li Si was expressionless. He said, "What's there to be afraid of death? I don't want to live anyway." Constable Zhao sized up Li Si for a long time but couldn't see anything special about him. He also didn't know if he passed the 3 tests or not. He thought for a long time and walked into a hall. He said to a man, "County Governor, how should we deal with this person?" The man said, "Let him stay." Constable Zhao hesitated. "But he's just a mortal." "According to the rules," the man said, "he was specifically asked for by the county governor." Constable Zhao was stunned. After he came to his senses, he didn't ask any more questions. According to the rules, those who were selected from the county yamen were the best among the local constables. They still had to pass the county yamen's test before they could officially work in the county capital. But since the county governor had spoken, it wasn't difficult to make an exception for a mortal who had never cultivated. In the county yamen, everyone stood together and waited for the results. Li Si suddenly realized something. He looked at Li Mu and asked, "If I didn't pass the test just now, would I be able to go back?" Li Mu nodded and said, "In principle, yes." Li Si slapped his thigh and said regretfully, "Why didn't I think of that just now?" Constable Zhao walked out again and said to the crowd, "Congratulations to all of you for passing the pre-employment test. I'll bring you to your living quarters." Li Si suddenly walked forward and said, "Sir Constable, I'm a greedy person and am easily tempted by money. I'm afraid I can't take on big responsibilities." Constable Zhao smiled and said, "You can slowly change in the future." Li Si was stunned and said, "I'm also greedy for women. I feel uncomfortable if I don't go to the brothel every day." Constable Zhao cupped his hands and said, "It's good to be energetic." Li Si continued, "I'm a coward. I'll run away when I see demons, ghosts, and evil creatures." Constable Zhao praised him. Constables also have to cherish their lives. If you can win, fight. If you can't win, run. This is a very wise behavior. Li Si stopped pretending and asked, "What will it take for you to chase me away?" Constable Zhao smiled and said, "You passed 3 tests. Why would I chase you away? The county yamen is a big family. In the future, treat this place as your own home. Don't be shy." The county governor's manner. A young man was standing in the middle of the room and reporting to a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man tapped the table with his index finger and said, "You said that he passed 3 tests. Money and beauty didn't tempt him, and he wasn't scared by the 3rd illusion?" The young man nodded and said in surprise, "He's just an ordinary person. How could he pass these 3 tests? He's worthy of being chosen by Miao Miao." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Let him see me." Chapter 133. When Constable Zhao brought them to their lodgings, everyone, including Li Mu, was dumbfounded. This was a small room. From the layout, it was obvious that it had been converted into a duty room. Against the walls on both sides, there was a bunk bed that could accommodate 5 people. On the wall inside, there was a standing cabinet. There were exactly 10 compartments on the cabinet that were used to store things. The 10 people who had passed the entrance examination were just enough to fill this room. Li Mu could not believe that the lodgings in the county yamen were so simple and crude. Although he did not expect to have a small house with a courtyard when he arrived, he did not expect that he would have to share a room with 9 other people. Constable Zhao saw their expressions and said, "The county yamen originally did not provide lodgings, but the prefectural governor empathized with everyone and converted the duty room into a bedroom. These are the conditions of the yamen. If you do not wish to stay here, you can also rent a room outside." These words were actually nonsense. The constable's monthly salary was only 1 tael of silver. It was not enough to rent a room or stay in an inn. The constables of the county yamen were all born and raised locally. No matter how poor they were, they had their own lodgings. However, the county capital was different. Many of the constables here were from other places and could not solve their own lodgings. The determined young man silently placed his luggage in a cabinet. He chose a spot against the wall and began to tidy his bed. The rest of the people looked hesitant. Living in the county yamen was obviously very depressing and there was no privacy. However, if they moved out, they would have to spend a large sum of money. Even if they did not come to the county yamen for their salary, they would still feel the pinch. After seeing the situation here, Li Mu did not plan to stay in the county yamen. He had too many secrets and needed enough space to cultivate. He planned to rent a house nearby. He was no longer the poor constable who had to borrow 20 taels of silver from half a year ago. Li Si put down his luggage with an indifferent expression. Based on Li Mu's understanding of him, he would not come back to sleep too often in the future. Li Si had just sat down when a young man in white walked in. When Constable Zhao saw the young man in white, he immediately bowed and asked, "Do you have any orders for me?" The young man in white said, "I'm looking for Li Si." He looked at Li Si, who was sitting by the bed, and said, "Come with me. The prefectural governor wants to see you." Li Si sighed and slowly stood up, as if he had expected this moment to come. He looked at Li Mu and said, "If I don't come back, remember to bring my message back to the Fragrant Pavilion, Apricot Courtyard, and Spring Wind Pavilion. Tell Xiang, Jin, Xiaowei, Ping, and Zihua that I love them." After Li Si finished speaking, a resolute look appeared on his face and he walked out without looking back. Li Mu watched his departing figure and could only congratulate him in his heart for growing old together with Miss Miao Miao and giving birth to a child soon. After the young man left with Li Si, another yamen runner walked in and whispered a few words into Constable Zhao's ear. "A yamen runner from our county office?" Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and the others in confusion and said to them, "Everyone, pack your things in a while. Come out with me first." The 9 of them walked out of the room and returned to the front yard. When Li Mu walked into the yard, he raised his head and saw the young man he had saved last night standing in the yard. Beside him was a middle-aged man. When the young man saw Li Mu, he quickly ran over and stood beside him. He said, "It's this big brother yamen runner who saved me." The middle-aged man strode forward and held Li Mu's wrist. He said, "Thank you for saving me, sir. I only have one son. If something happened to him, I really don't know what to do." Li Mu smiled and said, "As a yamen runner, it's my duty to kill ghosts that harm the people." "You're welcome." Constable Zhao said in surprise, "It's you who saved shopkeeper Su's son?" Li Mu nodded and said, "Last night, I was resting in a wilderness inn and encountered 2 female ghosts sucking people's yang qi. I secretly followed them and chased them to the lair of one of the evil ghosts. After eliminating the evil ghosts, I saved him." The middle-aged man said gratefully, "Sir, you saved the last of the Su family's descendants. The Su family is greatly indebted to you. I have prepared a small gift. I hope you can accept it." Li Mu waved his hand and said, "I appreciate shopkeeper Su's kindness, but there's no need for a gift. This is my duty. If this precedent is set, I'm afraid it will have a bad influence on the yamen." Firstly, he didn't lack money, and secondly, he didn't lack anything. He didn't need a small gift to thank him. The middle-aged man tried to persuade him again, but seeing Li Mu's insistence, he could only say, "Since sir is unwilling to accept it, then I will donate it to the county yamen." He took the young man's hand and said, "I'm not talented, but I have a small business in the county town. If sir needs me in the future, just let me know. If I can do it, I will definitely not refuse." Shopkeeper Su thanked him again, then left with Su Hao. Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu in surprise and said, "I originally thought that you used some method to resist the temptation of the illusion. Now it seems that you really aren't interested in money. Shopkeeper Su gave you 1,000 taels of silver, but you rejected it just like that." Li Mu's eyes widened. 1,000 taels? Li Mu was extremely regretful. If he had known that it was 1,000 taels, he wouldn't have been so polite just now. 1,000 taels was enough to buy a house in the county town. His politeness angered a tenant in the county town. He worked hard for Lu Hanyan for half a year, writing books, telling stories, acting, and pretending to be a ghost. It wasn't easy for him to earn 500 taels. Among them, there was also Lu Hanyan's dozens of taels of care. Last night, he had almost earned 1,000 taels of silver. What kind of small business did this shopkeeper Su have that 1,000 taels of silver could only be considered a small gift? Shopkeeper Su is a famous wealthy merchant in the county town. His business is all over the North County. He often cooks and gives to the poor. 1,000 taels of silver isn't a big sum to him. Constable Zhao explained, then asked, "Why, are you regretting it?" No, it was too late for Li Mu to regret. He could only sigh in his heart. Any small gift was worth 1,000 taels of silver. The richest person Li Mu knew was Lu Hanyan. Perhaps even Lu Hanyan wasn't as rich as this shopkeeper Su. Thinking of Lu Hanyan, Li Mu's heart began to itch. His hands also began to itch. This kind of situation happened frequently in the past 2 days. Without a doubt, Li Mu was already addicted to Lu Hanyan after so many times of dual cultivation. The heart-cleansing technique could only be used for a while, not for a lifetime. There were only 2 ways to get rid of the smoking addiction. First, the 2 of them lived in different places. After a long time, they would naturally stop thinking about each other. Second, if they moved together, they would be able to meet whenever they wanted to. They could enter the state of dual cultivation at any time. Naturally, there wouldn't be this kind of unattainable situation. Li Mu silently recited the heart-cleansing technique and calmed himself down. He thought of the evil ghost that he had killed last night and asked Constable Zhao, "Constable Zhao, do you know Chu Jiang of Gojoseon?" "Of course." Constable Zhao heaved a sigh of relief and said, "He's an extremely powerful ghost cultivator. It's said that he has 18 ghost generals under him. Most of them are at the Soul Realm," Li Mu said in shock. "Even his ghost generals are at the Soul Realm. Doesn't that mean his cultivation is even higher?" Constable Zhao said, "Most of the 18 ghost generals' cultivation is not weaker than that of a divine power cultivator. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon himself is comparable to a creation realm cultivator. They are a huge scourge of the North County. Even the county governor has a headache." Li Mu was puzzled. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon is only equivalent to a 5th realm cultivator. Could it be that even the county government can't defeat him? Logically speaking, even if the North County government couldn't defeat a 6th realm Xie or a ghost cultivator, it shouldn't be a problem to deal with a 5th realm Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. Constable Zhao shook his head and said, "It's not that they can't defeat him. It's just that these ghost cultivators usually hide their heads and tails. It's very difficult to find traces of them. Moreover, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon is easy to deal with, but the Nether Saint behind him is not," Li Mu said in surprise. "Who is the Nether Saint?" Constable Zhao asked, "Have you heard of the 1,000 Illusions Venerable?" Li Mu's heart skipped a beat. He nodded and said, "I've heard of him." Constable Zhao continued, "The demon sect has 10 subsects and 10 elders. The 1,000 Illusions Venerable is an elder of the Corpse sect. The Nether Saint is an elder of the Soul sect. They are both at the peak of the 6th realm. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon is a subordinate of the Nether Saint. He's ranked 2nd among the 10 kings of hell." Li Mu swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His heart was thumping wildly. The psychological trauma caused by the 1,000 Illusions Venerable had not been completely eliminated. Now there was the Nether Saint. He was just a lowly constable. Why was he always involved with such a monster? Constable Zhao looked at Li Mu and asked, "Why are you suddenly asking about this?" Li Mu waved his hand and forced a smile on his face. He said, "Nothing, I'm just asking." Chapter 134. After calming down and thinking about it, Li Mu felt that he had nothing to worry about. Although Lord Netherhell was terrifying, he was just an elder of the demon sect. He would not care about one of his subordinates. Perhaps the death of the evil ghost would not reach his ears. And that evil ghost was just one of the 18 ghost generals under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon might not pay attention to him. At the very least, even if Chu Jiang of Gojoseon paid attention to him, he would not know who killed him. Li Mu was safe. Compared to Li Mu, Li Si was more worrying. The prefectural governor and the prefectural prime minister had their own mansions in the city. Li Si should have been taken to the prefectural prime minister's mansion. Who knew how he was now, in the prefectural prime minister's mansion? Li Si stood in a bright study. The young man in white retreated to the door. The middle-aged man sat at the desk and sipped the tea in his cup. The atmosphere was strangely quiet. The middle-aged man finished the tea and put the cup on the table heavily. He said coldly, "How dare you, Li Si? How dare you?" Li Si raised his head and said, "I don't know. Please tell me, prefectural prime minister." Prefectural Prime Minister Chen snorted and said, "Do you think I don't know what you did in Yangqiu County?" Li Si sighed and lowered his head. He said, "What do you want me to do? Just say it." Prefectural Prime Minister Chen showed a playful expression and said, "Aren't you afraid that I will kill you?" Li Si walked to a chair and sat down. He said, "Why should I be afraid of death? If you want to kill me, I can't stop you. What's the use of being afraid?" Prefectural Prime Minister Chen looked at him and said, "Raise your head. I only want to ask you one question." Li Si raised his head and looked at him. County Magistrate Chen's eyes seemed to have turned into a deep pool, which sucked in all his attention. Commandery Minister Chen asked slowly, "What kind of person is Miao Miao in your heart?" Li Si reminisced, "She was the purest and kindest girl I've ever met." County Governor Chen's expression softened and he asked, "Don't you think she's ugly?" Li Si said, "Beauty and ugliness are just appearances. In my heart she is more beautiful than anyone else." Looking at Li Si, County Magistrate Chen suddenly burst into laughter. He laughed for a while, then looked back at Li Si and said, "This official will give you two choices. First, accompany Miao Miao and make her happy for the rest of her life. Whatever you want, I will give you. Money, power, cultivation, I can satisfy you." Li Si thought for a moment and asked, "What's the second?" County Magistrate Chen said, "Every Qingming festival, I'll have someone burn a few more sticks of incense at your grave." Li Si stood up and bowed respectfully to him. "Honorable father-in-law, please accept a bow from your son-in-law." Li Mu waited for less than an hour before Li Si walked in from outside. Li Mu stood up and asked, "How was it?" Li Si looked up at the sky and said, "Xiang Xiang Jin Shao Wei Ping and Sui Hua, goodbye forever. Have you seen Miss Miao Miao?" Li Si shook his head and said, "She is not in the county capital. She will be back in half a month." Li Mu asked, "Are you really going to stop?" Li Si sighed and said, "I'll take it one step at a time." "It's good to stop," Li Mu comforted him and said, "No matter how many women you have outside, it's not as good as having one at home." Li Si asked, "What about you?" In Li Mu's mind, Li Qing's face and Lu Hanyan's figure appeared sometimes. He thought for a moment and waved his hand. "We'll see." This time, the county government promoted a total of 10 constables from the local area. Aside from Li Si, the other 9 were all local officials who had performed outstandingly in this zombie disaster and had made some contributions to the local government. Among these people, there were no disciples from the big sections. In the county government, the disciples from the Buddhist and Taoist sects were the main force of the government. In the county government, they were the real officials of the Great Zhou. Their positions were either passed down by their ancestors or recruited by the county government. They were required to have a clean family background and no one from the previous 3 generations. They also had to be non-sect disciples. Among the 10 people, except for Li Mu, Li Si, and the young man, the others were all above 25 years old. Although they had reached the spirit-condensing realm, with their talent, it would be difficult for them to reach the spirit-condensing realm. There was no possibility for them to go further. In the county government, there were 6 spirit-condensing realm constables who were directly responsible to the county lieutenant. The 6 constables were responsible for different areas in the county capital. If the county government couldn't solve a case in the North County, they were responsible for solving it. Of the 10 people who passed the test, 3 were under Constable Zhao's command. They were Li Mu, Li Si, and the young man. Li Mu's performance in the 3rd test was the most outstanding, so he naturally became Constable Zhao's deputy. Although this deputy didn't have any actual power, Li Mu was quite satisfied that he didn't need to patrol the streets. Constable Zhao gave them 3 days to familiarize themselves with the prefectural city and settle their own matters. During these 3 days, Li Mu temporarily stayed in an inn to refine the soul energy that the prefectural governor had bestowed upon him, as well as the soul energy he had collected from killing the evil spirits. The county capital wasn't like the county capital. The work here was more dangerous, so he had to improve his strength as much as possible. In these 3 days, Li Si had already moved to the county prime minister's manor. Li Mu couldn't help but be envious, so he could only ask the broker to help him find a house for rent near the county government. He looked at a few houses but didn't find one that he was satisfied with. He thought that if he couldn't find one in a few days, he would just pick one and make do with it. In the county government, Constable Zhao spread a map on the table and said, "The eastern district of the county capital, as well as Yang County and Yu County in the east, are all under our jurisdiction. You have to arrange for people to patrol the city every day. Yang County and Yu County will only ask the county government for help if there's something they can't handle. What you have to do on a daily basis is to maintain the security of the Eastern District and be responsible for the safety of the dozens of villages outside the Eastern District." Li Mu's duties didn't change much compared to when he was in Yangqiu County. The only difference was that at that time, he only needed to follow behind Li Qing. Now, he had to rush in front. There wasn't much to do in the morning. Seeing that it was almost noon, Li Mu was about to go out for lunch when a yamen runner who was standing guard at the door walked into the room and said, "Constable Li, someone is looking for you." Other than the father and son of the Su family, Li Mu didn't know anyone else in the county capital. Could it be that shopkeeper Su felt that the gift he donated to the county government wasn't enough to express his gratitude, so he came to give another gift? Li Mu walked out expectantly. When he saw Zhang Shan standing outside the county government, he said disappointedly, "Why are you here?" Zhang Shan frowned. "What's with your expression?" Li Mu walked up and asked curiously, "Why are you in the county capital?" Zhang Shan said, "I'm here to send someone off." Li Mu asked, "Who are you sending off?" Zhang Shan pointed at the carriage parked at the entrance of the county government. Lu Hanyan lifted the curtain and jumped down from the carriage. Then, it was Wan who jumped down with a little fox in her arms. Wan ran over quickly and said happily, "Young master." Xiao Bai's eyes were also filled with smiles. Li Mu looked at them and asked in surprise, "Why are you in the county capital?" Wan said with a smile, "Miss said that she wants to open a branch in the county capital." Li Mu calculated that they would arrive in the county capital at noon today. With the speed of the carriage, they should have left yesterday morning. This meant that from the time Li Mu left, Lu Hanyan only took 3 days from the time she decided to open a branch, arranged everything in Yangqiu County, packed her things and left. He walked to Lu Hanyan and asked, "You want to open a branch here?" Lu Hanyan glanced at him and said, "The business in Yangqiu County doesn't have much room to expand. There are many people in the county capital and there are many rich people." "Business is good?" Li Mu asked. "Have you chosen a location?" Lu Hanyan shook her head and said, "No." "Have you hired someone?" "Have you found a place to stay?" "No," Li Mu said speechlessly. "You dare to come to the county capital without anything? Why are you talking so much nonsense? Are you better at doing business or am I better at doing business?" Lu Hanyan glared at him and said, "Let's go and eat first. Wan is starving." With that, she ignored Li Mu and got back into the carriage. Li Si walked out of the government office and said meaningfully, "What are you waiting for? If you meet someone like this, just marry her." Chapter 135. Lu Hanyan made the decision to open a branch in the prefecture capital 4 days ago. She used 3 days to arrange everything in Yangqiu County. After Zhang Shan heard about this from his wife, he was worried that the two of them would encounter danger on the road, so he took the initiative to escort them here. Li Mu knew very well that Lu Hanyan saying that she wanted to open a branch in the prefecture capital was just an excuse. Some things would happen countless times after the first time. In these 3 days, Li Mu also wanted to return to Yangqiu County countless times to dual cultivate with her every night. After all, this was much easier than cultivating alone. Opening a branch was just a spur-of-the-moment thing, and she hadn't prepared anything yet. The first thing she had to solve was the problem of accommodation. To her, this couldn't be any easier. After dinner, she went to the broker house and bought a 2-story house. She gave the broker 10 taels of silver as a reward. The broker helped her complete all the transfer procedures within 2 hours and asked people to clean the house inside and outside. Zhang Shan couldn't help but sigh as he moved the boxes one by one from the carriage into the courtyard. It's so good to be rich. When can I buy a house like this? Li Si calculated and said, it won't take too long. If you work in the county yamen and don't eat or drink, you can save 5 taels of silver a year. You can buy a house in 200 years. If you're willing to come to the prefecture yamen, you only need about 100 years. Lu Hanyan suddenly said, if Brother Zhang Shan doesn't want to be a constable and is willing to come to Yunyan Pavilion, I guarantee that you can buy a house like this within 10 years. Li Si also said, didn't you just say that Lord Zhang's transfer order has arrived? He's about to leave Yangqiu County. When that time comes, you won't have much to do in the county yamen. Why don't you come to the prefecture capital? Although the temptation of silver was great for Zhang Shan, he still said worriedly, I'm not familiar with this place. Li Si patted his chest and said, what are you afraid of? Don't worry, I will protect you. Zhang Shan pursed his lips and said, you've only been in the prefecture city for a few days. Who can you protect? Li Mu glanced at Zhang Shan and said, he's really capable. Li Si was now living in the prefectural minister's mansion. In such a large prefecture, there were not many people that he could not protect. Even Li Mu needed his protection. Zhang Shan was still somewhat hesitant. He said, let me think about it. Li Si went straight to the point. Do you want to stay in Yangqiu County to accompany your wife? The hesitation on Zhang Shan's face disappeared as he said firmly, I've made up my mind. After careful consideration, Zhang Shan decided to resign. First of all, after Zhang County Magistrates was transferred, he had lost his backer in the county yamen. His life in the future might not be as good as before. Second of all, the job of a bailiff was too dangerous for an ordinary person like him. If he was not careful, he could lose his life. Especially after his experience in the past 6 months, he had long wanted to quit. Most importantly, he did not have to struggle for 200 years. It was already late, so Zhang Shan could not go back. He planned to leave early the next morning. Lu Hanyan said, there are many rooms in the new house. If Brother Zhang Shan doesn't mind, you can stay here for the night. Zhang Shan was about to agree. After all, staying in an inn cost more money. Li Si shook his head and said, there are no bedding in the new house. It's too troublesome to prepare, Zhang Shan said, I can sleep on the floor. It's fine. Li Si put his arm around his shoulder and said, you came all the way here. How can I let you sleep on the floor? You can sleep with me tonight. My bed is very big and comfortable. Zhang Shan was dragged away by him. Before he left, Li Si looked back at Li Mu with a meaningful look. Lu Hanyan also gave Li Mu a look. It was a look that Li Mu was very familiar with. Li Mu's throat moved. He swallowed and said, I want to go back to the inn tonight. Lu Hanyan asked, you're staying in an inn? Li Mu nodded and said, I haven't found a place to rent yet. Lu Hanyan pointed to the east and west rooms and said, there are so many rooms here. You can choose one to live in. It'll be convenient for cultivation in the future. Without waiting for Li Mu to speak, she added, if you think it's inconvenient, I can buy the house next door. You can choose to live next door. You can pay me rent every month. It's too troublesome to buy another house. I'll go to the inn to get my luggage. Li Mu thought about it carefully. Even Lu Hanyan didn't think it was a problem. He had nothing to worry about. In these 3 days, he wasn't used to being away from Lu Hanyan. After he went to the yamen, she didn't cook and wait for him at home. There was no one to dual cultivate with at night. Although Li Mu didn't show it when Lu Hanyan came to the county town, his empty heart was suddenly filled. Li Mu returned to the inn and packed his luggage. When he returned, Wan Wan had already helped him tidy up the room and made the bed. The quilt on the bed wasn't new. There was a faint fragrance. Wan Wan took Li Mu's bag and said, Miss used to cover you with this quilt before. Miss said she would buy you a new one tomorrow. Li Mu waved his hand and said, "No need. It's okay if it's an old quilt. It's fine as long as it can be used." Li Mu packed his luggage and heard the sound of footsteps coming closer behind him. Lu Hanyan leaned against the door and glanced at Li Mu. "You're here?" A moment later, on the bed, Li Mu and Lu Hanyan sat cross-legged facing each other. Their palms were facing each other. Mana quickly circulated in their bodies. Li Mu now somewhat understood why those who cultivated heretical cultivation would go further and further down this path once they started harming people. Why those righteous sects would strictly restrict the shortcuts their disciples took. Li Mu thought that he had a firm mind, but even he couldn't resist the temptation of such a rapid increase in mana. Of course, he just couldn't resist dual cultivation with Lu Hanyan. He never had the thought of harming people by extracting their souls. As for Lu Hanyan, she was clearly even less firm than Li Mu. Li Mu suddenly had a thought. Lu Hanyan couldn't wait to rush over from Yangqiu County. Did that count as having some kind of desire for him? He used the method of guiding her emotions to test her. He actually absorbed desire from her. Li Mu opened his eyes and looked at Lu Hanyan in shock. He didn't know if what he absorbed was desire to see, touch, or lust. Lu Hanyan, who had her eyes closed and focused on cultivation, suddenly opened her eyes. She felt a familiar feeling coming from her body. She looked at Li Mu and said angrily, "Did you suck me again?" Li Mu quickly stopped. Lu Hanyan snorted and said, "Do you think you're the only one who knows how to suck?" As soon as she finished speaking, Li Mu felt an emptiness in his body. He looked down and found that there was a yellow emotion in his body that was attracted to her. Yellow was desire. This was his desire for Lu Hanyan. Li Mu was stunned. Could it be that he also had desire for Lu Hanyan? His transcendence energy was much higher than Lu Hanyan's. He could cut off her guidance at any time, but this would hurt her. Li Mu simply let her guide him. At the same time, he continued to absorb the desire in her body. Not long after, the two of them fell on the bed at the same time. Lu Hanyan said weakly, "I don't want to play anymore. I'm so tired." Then she looked at Li Mu and asked, You actually have desire for me." Li Mu said, "Aren't you the same?" Lu Hanyan explained, "I'm doing it because of cultivation." Li Mu said, "Me too." Lu Hanyan was too lazy to speak again. She lay on the bed, her chest rising and falling as she recovered her strength. Li Mu thought of Li Si's words and suddenly said, "Say, aren't you worried that you won't be able to get married if we do this every night?" Lu Hanyan said indifferently, "I'm not thinking of getting married." Li Mu said, "I'm going to get married." Lu Hanyan turned to look at him angrily and asked, "What do you mean?" Li Mu explained, "What I mean is that since we're already like this, we can't leave each other. Why don't we just be together? It won't waste the pure yin and pure yang constitutions." Lu Hanyan was stunned and asked, "Didn't you say that I'm not as good as Constable Li, not as obedient as Wanwan, and that I'm not your type?" Li Mu. Lu Hanyan got up from the bed and looked at Li Mu warily. She asked, "Why did you suddenly change your mind? Tell me, are you after my money?" Chapter 136. Good and evil had their retribution. This was the cycle of the heavenly Tao. Li Mu didn't expect retribution, and he didn't expect it to come so quickly. In the past, he had despised Lu Hanyan for not being as good at fighting as Li Qing and not being as obedient as Wanwan. She had actually remembered all of this. He looked at Lu Hanyan and opened his mouth, but he was speechless. The atmosphere on the bed was somewhat awkward. Lu Hanyan got off the bed and put on her shoes. She said, "I'm going back to my room." Li Mu had originally wanted to explain that he was not after her money, but after thinking about it, he decided against it. In any case, they were already living together. In the future, there would be plenty of opportunities to prove himself. To prove that he was not after her money, but purely after her body. After coming to the prefectural capital, Li Si's words had awakened Li Mu from his dreams. At the same time, Li Mu had recognized himself, and also began to face matters of the heart. In this half a year, Li Mu had focused on condensing his soul to survive. He did not have much time or energy to think about these issues. Even under such circumstances, two women still walked into his heart. Li Qing was the guide to his cultivation. She taught him cultivation, helped him condense his soul, protected him in all aspects, and saved his life several times. Although Lu Hanyan's cultivation was not high, she was kind-hearted and considerate. She had countless shining points. She fulfilled almost all the fantasies a man had of an ideal wife. To Li Mu, she was far more attractive than this. Pure yin and pure yang were innately suited for dual cultivation. After tasting it for the first time, the two were already inseparable. When he thought of Li Qing, Li Mu still felt some regret. However, he also knew very well that he could not change Li Qing's determination to seek the Tao. Li Si said that he had to cherish the people in front of him. Although he was talking about himself, Li Mu was thinking about Lu Hanyan. Today, when Li Mu saw her at the entrance of the prefectural government, he had already made his decision. However, Lu Hanyan was not one. It would not be easy to win her over. Feelings could not be rushed. Anyway, she had already arrived in the prefecture capital and did not plan to leave in a short period of time. They had plenty of time ahead of them. When he went to the county yamen tomorrow, he would ask Li Si for advice. Li Mu composed himself. Xiao Bai ran in from outside and jumped onto the bed. She said obediently, "Benefactor." Her cultivation had improved a lot compared to a few days ago, mainly because of the old fox's teachings before his death. Currently, she had not completely digested the soul power, otherwise, she would have been able to transform. However, due to the increase in its cultivation, the demonic aura it was emitting had also grown stronger. There were many cultivators in the county city. The head constable of the county government was only at the soul-condensing realm, while the 6 sub-constables of the county government were all at the spirit-concentrating realm. The county captain had even reached the middle 3 realms. The risk of being exposed in the county city was very high. Even though she had never harmed anyone and the demonic aura it emitted was clear and pure, a demon was still a demon. If she was exposed in front of cultivators, there was no guarantee that they would not have evil intentions. Li Mu gently stroked her head. Xiao Bai leaned on Li Mu. Her gem-like eyes curved into crescents and her eyes were filled with contentment. Li Mu thought for a moment. The hand that was stroking her gradually emitted a golden light. The light of Buddha could expel the demonic aura from demons. There were many demons and ghosts in the Jinshan temple, but they did not have any demonic aura or demonic aura. This was because they had been practicing Buddhism for a long time. Li Mu used the Heart Sutra to activate the light of Buddha. After a long time, he could expel the demonic aura from her body. Li Mu had used this method to expel the demonic aura from the little snake. This method could not only prevent the demonic aura from leaking out, but it could also prevent her from being harmed by the light of Buddha in the future. As the light of Buddha entered her body, Xiao Bai felt warm and comfortable all over. She could not help but let out a moan. The soul energy in her body gradually merged into her body under the light of Buddha. She rubbed her head against Li Mu's hand. Her eyes were a little intoxicated. She could already feel that she was not far away from taking human form. In the inner courtyard, Lu Hanyan's room was still lit. She sat in front of the table and held her chin with one hand. Her eyes were blurred as she muttered, "What does he mean? What does he mean by we can't leave each other? Why don't we just be together? Does this mean that he likes me?" Li Mu had expressed his disdain for her more than once. He despised her for not having a higher cultivation than Li Qing and not being as obedient and cute as Wanwan. Lu Hanyan's confidence in herself had long been destroyed. Now he said something that she did not expect. Could it be that he was the same as her and had also been poisoned by the dual cultivation? In the 3 days that Li Mu had left, she was completely distracted. It was as if a piece of her heart was missing. This was the most important reason that drove her to the prefecture capital. If she could turn back time, Lu Hanyan would definitely not have taken the initiative to drink those few cups of wine with Li Mu. If they did not sleep together that night, she would not be in this predicament today. Unfortunately, there were no ifs. However, when she thought about how Li Mu actually had lust for her, her mood inexplicably improved. It was as if she had found the confidence that she had lost in the past. She had never considered marriage before. Now that she thought about it carefully, marriage did not seem so scary. Except for the fact that Li Mu wanted to marry many wives, he did not have any obvious shortcomings. If she were to marry him, it did not seem unacceptable. She smiled and said proudly, "It's too late to know my good now. What will happen in the future depends on your performance, bah." As soon as this thought came to her mind, Lu Hanyan secretly spat a few times. She said shyly, "Lu Hanyan, oh Lu Hanyan, you have never thought of marrying. You even want to snatch Wan Wan's man." Zhang Shan and Li Si slept in the county premier's mansion last night. When Li Mu and Li Si sent him out of the prefecture capital today, his expression was still a little absent-minded. Before he got on the carriage, he still looked at Li Si in disbelief and said, "Do you really want to enter the county premier's mansion?" Li Si said with melancholy, "Do I have any other choice?" Zhang Shan did not say anything. He just patted him on the shoulder and said, "Don't be too sad. I'll explain to Xiang, Jin, Xiaowei, Ping, and Suhua for you." Li Si looked in the direction of Yangqiu County and gazed into the distance. He said calmly, "Tell them that I'm already dead." The prodigal Li Si was indeed dead. Under the pressure of the county premier, he could not act recklessly again. Li Mu was also ready to face up to the relationship between him and Lu Hanyan. After returning to the county office, he humbly asked Li Si for advice on how to pursue a girl. Li Si put his hands behind his head and leaned on the chair of the county office. He said, "Pursuing a girl varies from person to person. There is no experience that can be applied to everyone, but one thing remains unchanged." Li Mu said, "Sincerity." Li Si nodded and said, "There are countless ways to pursue a girl, but sincerity is the most important. In this world, sincerity is the most worthless, but it is also the most valuable." Li Mu said, "Can you be more specific?" Li Si continued, "Lady Lu's life experience is miserable. She relied on her own efforts to get to where she is today. Such a girl will often close her heart and will not easily trust others. You need to use your sincerity to open her closed heart." In the past few days in the county office, Li Mu found that it was even more leisurely than the county office. After all, it was the capital of a county. Demons, ghosts, and evil spirits without any cultivation would not dare to be presumptuous nearby, so the office was relatively free. After listening to Li Si's advice, Li Mu went home early and went to the market to buy some dishes that Lu Hanyan liked. During dinner, Lu Hanyan sat down opposite Li Mu. She picked up her chopsticks and glanced at the table. When she found that Li Mu had made all the dishes that she liked, she suddenly looked up at Li Mu and asked, "Do you have something to ask of me?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "No." Li Mu denied it, and Lu Hanyan did not ask any more questions. After dinner, she prepared to clean up and wash the dishes. This was a tacit understanding that she and Li Mu had developed when they were in Yangqiu County. If one of them cooked, the other would wash the pot and the dishes. Li Mu stood up and put away the dishes. He said to Lu Hanyan, "Let me do it." Lu Hanyan looked at Li Mu suspiciously. "You really don't have anything to ask of me?" Li Mu said helplessly, "I said I don't." After a while, Lu Hanyan sat in the courtyard and glanced at the kitchen from time to time with a puzzled expression. Li Mu's behavior today was a little abnormal, and it made her feel a little uneasy. Thinking of what he said last night, Lu Hanyan was even more certain that something must have happened in the days when she was not by Li Mu's side. Li Mu finished washing the dishes and took the initiative to peel an apple. He walked to Lu Hanyan and handed it to her. Lu Hanyan looked around and said uncertainly, "For me?" Li Mu asked, "Is there anyone else here?" Looking at the apple that Li Mu had peeled for her for the first time, Lu Hanyan was not moved. She said with a nervous expression, "Don't be like this, I'm scared." Chapter 137. Li Mu gave the peeled apple to Wanwan and Xiaobai, then went back to his room. He really couldn't understand the thoughts of mature women. Wan and Xiaobai were still the most adorable and simple ones. He decided to put the matter of Lu Hanyan aside for now. He had absorbed a lot of lust in the past 2 days. After Li Mu refined it, he continued to cultivate the 6 senses of Buddhism. The best time to condense one's soul was on the night of the 3rd, 13th, and 23rd of every month. Apart from these 3 days, the effect of condensing one's soul was very ordinary. However, the cultivation of the 6 senses of Buddhism didn't care about the time. Li Mu had already cultivated the first sense of sight. Ordinary demonic ghosts couldn't hide from his eyes. When the first sense of sight was cultivated to a high level, one could see through all fabrications and wouldn't be trapped by illusions or formations. This was something that even the clairvoyance spell couldn't compare to. Lu Hanyan went to Li Mu's room when it was time. She did not mention anything about what happened last night. The two of them sat cross-legged across from each other. For hours later, she got off the bed and left. The next morning, Li Mu had just arrived at the county yamen. Before he could sit down, Constable Zhao walked in and said, "The yamen received a report from the villagers yesterday. Something strange happened in Gua village outside the city. I suspect it's the work of a demonic ghost. You should go and take a look." Other than Li Mu, all of Constable Zhao's subordinates were out patrolling the streets. Li Mu asked about the direction of Gua village. He went out of the city gate from the east side and headed for Gua village alone. Before he left, he had asked around and found out that there were no deaths in Gua village. He had just arrived at the county yamen. Constable Zhao wouldn't give him the important cases. Gua village wasn't close to the county town. Li Mu used the teleporting talisman and it took him almost half an hour to get there. He arrived at Gua village and asked a villager about the situation. Then he knocked on the door of a house. It was a peasant woman who opened the door. When she saw Li Mu's clothes, her face lit up. She said, "Sir, you're finally here. Please save my husband." Li Mu walked into the courtyard and asked, "What happened?" The peasant woman said, "I don't know what's wrong with my husband. For the past few days, he's been going out every night. When he comes back in the morning, he falls asleep the moment he falls asleep. I can't wake him up even if I call him." This was a sign of insufficient yang qi. Li Mu thought for a moment and asked, "Where is your husband?" The woman pointed to the room and said, "He sleeps at home all day." Li Mu walked into the room and saw a man lying on the bed, snoring loudly. His eyes were sunken and his face was as pale as a sheet of paper. Li Mu's eyes flashed with golden light and he saw that this person's yang qi was extremely insufficient. Although the 7 spirits were all in his body, they were all dim and had no effect. Li Mu had also experienced drowsiness and difficulty waking up after the 2 souls of Fei Du and Dead Dog had lost their effectiveness. However, it was because his 7 souls were missing, while the man on the bed had his yang energy sucked away by something. Those low-level demons and ghosts who harbored evil intentions but didn't have the guts to kill people liked to suck people's yang energy the most. The woman looked at Li Mu and said worriedly, "Sir, what should we do?" Li Mu looked at the unconscious man and said, "When he wakes up, don't say anything or ask anything. If he goes out at night again, I will follow behind him." As a bailiff, Li Mu had carefully studied the laws of the Great Zhou. The laws of the Great Zhou were mostly written for the people of the Great Zhou. However, there were also restrictions for the demons and ghosts living in the Great Zhou, and even for the cultivators. For small cases, such as the yellow rat couple who only stole a few chickens from the villagers, the imperial court wouldn't kill them. According to the law, they just needed to pay double the compensation. However, for demons and ghosts that killed people, the law was merciless. It would only stop when their souls were destroyed. Sucking people's yang energy to cultivate was something between the two. Although it wouldn't lead to death, the punishment wasn't light either. At the very least, they would lose 10 years of cultivation. Those demons that didn't have a high cultivation level might be directly knocked out of shape and have to cultivate from scratch. Li Mu first returned to the yamen and reported the situation in Gua village. Hearing this, Bailiff Zhao said, "Tonight, I will send 2 soul-condensing realm bailiffs with you." "No need." Li Mu shook his head and said, "Things that need to suck people's yang energy to cultivate won't have a high cultivation level. I can handle it alone, But if there are more people, I'm afraid we will alert the enemy. Bailiff Zhao thought of Li Mu's performance in the third illusion and knew that his strength shouldn't be above the soul-condensing realm. He nodded and said, "Then be careful. If anything goes wrong, retreat immediately." He walked into the inner room of the duty room and took out a fulu. He handed it to Li Mu and said, "This talisman is for you. At a critical moment, it will ensure your safety." Li Mu took the fulu and discovered that it was a divine travel talisman. However, the spiritual energy contained in this talisman was much more than the divine travel talismans that Li Mu wrote himself. The higher the grade of the fulu, the more powerful it was. A divine travel talisman of this grade was probably made by a transcendent realm cultivator at the very least. The maximum speed it could unleash would also be greatly increased. With this talisman, even if he encountered a middle realm demon ghost, he would be able to easily retreat. A fulu of this grade was not cheap. As expected, the county government was rich and imposing. Even a Xian-grade fulu could be given to ordinary bailiffs when they went out on missions. Li Mu had asked the peasant woman before. Her husband would go out every night before nightfall. It was still early, so Li Mu was in no hurry to go over. He came to a room filled with books in the county government. He took a book from the bookshelf and sat down to read. Whether it was the county government or the county government, they all had a library. The books here were prepared for the cultivators in the county government. The cultivators in the county government did not belong to any sections. Most of their cultivation relied on the resources provided by the imperial court. These books were very diverse. There were fulu, pills, formations, and all sorts of unorthodox Taoist books. Although they were all basic books and could not touch on the core secrets of the Fulu school, the Pill Cauldron sect, or the Spirit Formation sect, it was enough for people who had just stepped into the path of cultivation to broaden their knowledge. Li Mu did not refuse any of the books. No matter how unorthodox they were or whether they could be used now, he was not picky. What Master Qinhuan taught Li Mu was not only to be careful and not to trust others easily, but also taught Li Mu that reading more was never wrong. In the afternoon, Li Mu left the county government and went home first. Lu Hanyan was about to go out to buy food. She asked, "I'm cooking today. What do you want to eat?" Li Mu said, "I have a case to take care of today. Don't wait for me to eat." Lu Hanyan paused and asked, "Are you coming back tonight?" Li Mu thought for a moment and said, "I should be back." Li Mu went home and changed into casual clothes. After saying goodbye to Lu Hanyan, he directly left. Wan ran out from the inner courtyard and said, "Miss, let me accompany you to buy food." "Forget it. Let's not buy food." Lu Hanyan put down the bamboo basket and said, "There's still a lot of food left from yesterday. Let's heat it up and eat." Gua village. After the sun disappeared from the west, the sky gradually darkened. A sneaky figure walked out of the village. When he reached the entrance of the village, he looked around and saw that no one was following him. Then he left quickly. Another figure landed lightly from the locust tree at the entrance of the village. It was Li Mu, who had been waiting for a long time. Li Mu stuck a camouflage talisman on himself and followed the man up the mountain. The camouflage talisman could only hide one's body and fool the eyes of ordinary people. It was easy for cultivators to sense one's aura, but it was enough to follow a mortal. Li Mu followed him into a bamboo forest. In the depths of the bamboo forest, a bamboo house was hidden. The man walked to the front of the bamboo house and pushed the door open. He said with a lewd smile, "Young lady, I'm here again." Golden light flashed in Li Mu's eyes. He saw that the bamboo house was filled with a faint demonic aura. Although the demonic aura was not as pure as Xiaobai's, it was not dirty either. It meant that this demon did not feed on humans. Judging from the level of the demonic aura, it should be a demon in human form. Li Mu used his heavenly eye again. Together with the golden light in his eyes, he saw through the bamboo house and saw two figures inside. One of them was the man. He was lying flat on the ground. Wisps of white smoke slowly drifted out from his nose and were absorbed by the other figure. Judging from the man's twitching movements on the ground, he was probably lost in an illusion. This demon used the illusion to confuse the man's mind and take the opportunity to absorb his yang qi for cultivation. If Li Mu did not use the thunder technique, it would be difficult for him to defeat this demon in human form. However, if he used the thunder technique, it would be reduced to ashes. In that case, he would have nothing to say to the yamen. Moreover, with its actions, although it was guilty, it did not deserve to die. Li Mu thought for a moment and suddenly had an idea. He left Bai in the bamboo forest and slowly walked toward the bamboo house. Chapter 138. Inside the bamboo house, a woman in a green dress was absorbing the yang qi of the man on the ground. Suddenly, her expression changed and she looked at the door. Light footsteps came from the door of the bamboo house. A young man pushed the door open and said, "Good Aiden, I was wondering what you were up to these days, sneaking out. It turns out that you are keeping a woman in the mountain. If you don't give me some benefits, I will go back and tell your wife. She will break your legs." Hearing this, the woman in the green dress softened. She put on a charming smile and walked away. After closing the door of the bamboo house, she said with a sweet smile, "Don't. What benefits do you want? I will give it to you." As she spoke, she spat out a puff of pink mist. The young man inhaled the mist and his expression became blurred. He looked at the woman in the green dress and murmured, "I want you." The woman in the green dress waved her sleeve and the man on the ground flew to the corner of the bamboo house, unconscious. She put one hand on the young man's chest and twisted her body. She said, "Young master, you are so naughty." The young man was in a daze. Step by step, she helped him to the bed and looked at him. She said in a low voice, "You are quite handsome. I can't bear to part with you." She put the young man on the bed gently and climbed onto the bed herself. She kept twisting beside him. Wisps of white mist flew out from the young man and were absorbed into her body. After a while, the woman in the green dress stopped. She looked confused. Although the young man who came in later had abundant yang qi, she only managed to absorb a little bit of it with great effort. On the other hand, it seemed that something in her body had been sucked dry. She felt dizzy and her legs were weak. She fell back onto the bed. She suddenly looked up at Li Mu and said in shock, You are not." Li Mu cast a spell with his left hand and a white light flashed outside the house. The Bai sword flew in from outside and was held in his hand. Li Mu pointed the sword at the woman and said coldly, "How dare you, demon? I can tell at a glance that you are not human." Li Mu had already seen that the woman's true form was a green snake when he was outside. The yang qi of Gua Village's man had been sucked away by this shape-shifting snake demon. The woman was furious when Bai Yi pointed at her. "Damn it! You're a cultivator." Li Mu said coldly, "You didn't walk the righteous path, so you should have expected this day to come." The woman in the green dress coldly snorted, "That will depend on your ability." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly disappeared into thin air, leaving only a green dress on the bed. "Where do you think you're going?" Li Mu jumped down from the bed. Holding Bai Yi in his hand, he chased after a green shadow that was fleeing at high speed at the door. The body of the snake demon was a green snake about 10 feet long. Its body was covered with fine scales. Li Mu had just chased out of the bamboo house when he heard the sound of wind breaking. A black shadow came right at his head. Li Mu stretched out his arm to block. His body retreated a few steps before he regained his balance. Even so, his arm was still numb. The most powerful thing about monsters was their bodies. If not for Li Mu's dual cultivation of Buddhism and Taoism, and the fact that his body had been tempered twice by Xuandu and the abbot of Jinshan Temple, the snake demon's tail whip would have broken Li Mu's arm. However, the head-on confrontation just now had given Li Mu a clear understanding of his physical strength. Although the snake demon had the upper hand in the attack just now, its tail was still trembling slightly. This meant that Li Mu's physical strength was not much weaker than its monster form. Li Mu decided to take Bai Yi in. He wanted to use his physical strength to subdue this shape-shifting snake demon. Li Mu still remembered Xuandu's bravery. The snake demon's attack did not work. It used its tail as a drill and stabbed at Li Mu's chest. Li Mu reached out at lightning speed. He grabbed the snake demon's tail and swung it away. The snake demon was thrown out and hit a tree hard. The snake demon's body was aching. It was also shocked. This human cultivator's body was not much weaker than that of monsters. It sat on the tree and said angrily, "Damn human cultivator, I have no grudge against you. Why do you have to make things difficult for me?" Li Mu said, "You have broken the law by absorbing people's yang qi to cultivate. Come with me to the yamen and be punished. I can spare your life." "Don't even think about it." The snake demon snorted. "Do you think I can survive after I enter your yamen? Don't you humans like to extract my soul, extract my snake gall, and eat snake meat?" Li Mu said, "Then let's see who's the real deal." The snake demon spat out its tongue and jumped on Li Mu with the help of the tree. It was so fast that Li Mu could only see a shadow. Li Mu clenched his fists and punched forward. It hit the snake demon's head and made a dull sound. Li Mu's fist was numb. The snake demon was sent flying. It struggled a few times but still could not get up. It was shocked by Li Mu's strength and body. It endured the pain and dizziness and gritted its teeth. "If you hadn't sucked my strength dry, you wouldn't have been able to defeat me." Boom. A white thunderbolt blasted a hole in the ground beside it. The snake demon's eyes were wide open. She felt a strong sense of danger from the white thunderbolt. If this thunderbolt hit her body would definitely be turned into ashes. Even her soul would not be able to escape. Li Mu saw that the snake demon was stunned and did not continue to force it. "How about we make a bet? If you win, I'll let you go. If you lose, you'll follow me back to the yamen and accept the punishment of the law. However, I can guarantee that the crime you committed will not be punishable by death." The thunderbolt just now had proved that this person had the ability to kill her. He was the knife and she was the snake meat. She had no choice. She sat up and asked, "What are we betting on?" Li Mu said, "Let's bet on whether you can disturb my concentration. If you can, I'll let you go." The snake demon hesitated for a moment and said, "Wait for me to put on my clothes." She slithered into the bamboo house. When she came out, she had already turned into a human and was wearing an emerald green dress. She walked to Li Mu's side and looked at him with fear and confusion. But soon she snorted. A normal man would not be able to maintain his concentration under her seduction. Li Mu stood there. The snake demon's lower body revealed its original form and gently wrapped around Li Mu's legs. She hooked her arms around his neck and leaned close to his ear. She gently exhaled and said, "It's boring to cultivate alone. Why don't we do something happier?" Although she said that, she was actually thinking about whether or not she should just reveal her true form and swallow him in one gulp. This thought only flashed through her mind, but she directly rejected it. First, she had never eaten a human. Second, she could not see through this person's cultivation. She was afraid that she would die in his hands before she could take action. Moreover, although this human cultivator was abominable, he was quite handsome. If she could subdue him and absorb his yang qi to cultivate every day, it would be an inexhaustible source. Wouldn't that be a better way to cultivate? Under such close contact, Li Mu's heartbeat was normal, but the snake demon's heart was in chaos. She had always absorbed people's yang qi through illusions. When had she ever used her own body as bait? This man's yang qi that hit her in the face made her a little restless for a moment. Even her body became weak and she no longer had the strength to wrap around Li Mu. Soon, she realized that there was indeed a steady flow of power in her body. She immediately let go of Li Mu and said in horror, "What did you do to me?" Li Mu slowly opened his eyes and exhaled softly. He did not expect that one day he would still be reduced to the point where he had to rely on his body to cultivate. The desire provided by this snake demon was more than the two female ghosts and Lu Hanyan combined. Collecting the 7 emotions was indeed more useful the higher one's cultivation was. "You lost." Li Mu looked at her and walked toward the snake demon. He said, "Come back to the county office with me." He took a few steps and suddenly stopped. He raised his head and looked out of the bamboo forest. There was a powerful demon chi that soared into the sky and was quickly approaching the bamboo forest. That demon chi was much stronger than this green snake. It must be a monster of the middle 3 realms that had condensed a demon core. The green snake also felt the demon chi. Joy appeared on its face and it said loudly, "Sister, save me." Chapter 139. Feeling the strong demonic aura, Li Mu couldn't care less about the green snake. Without hesitation, he took out the divine travel talisman and rushed into the bamboo house. He grabbed the man's body and rushed out of the bamboo forest from another direction. With his current strength, he was no match for the green snake at her peak without the help of the 9 syllables mantra. If Li Mu hadn't sucked a lot of her lust from her at the beginning, Li Mu wouldn't have been able to gain the upper hand in the later fight. If he encountered a core condensation monster, he had no other choice but to run. Li Mu's figure quickly disappeared. A white figure came from outside the bamboo forest and landed beside the green snake. The green snake looked up at her and pointed in the direction Li Mu left. She gritted her teeth and said, "Sister, go and catch that human cultivator." The woman in white looked at the green snake who was lying on the ground and snorted. "Don't think I don't know that you secretly suck the yang qi of humans to cultivate. I came out this time to catch you." The green snake got up from the ground and said, "Then you don't care if I'm bullied by humans?" The woman in white pulled her ear and said, "You deserve it. If the government finds out, I'll see how you explain it to your father." Thinking that the human cultivator just now seemed to be from the government, the green snake's heart thumped. However, she was still unconvinced. "Didn't you sneak out not long ago? Why are you only talking about me and not yourself? You still dare to talk back? See how I'll deal with you when we get back." The woman in white glared at her. She rolled up a demon wind and took the green snake with her, quickly disappearing into the bamboo forest. At the foot of the mountain, Li Mu carried the unconscious man and ran quickly on the mountain path. There was only the sound of the wind in his ears. The speed of the spirit travel talisman was far beyond his expectations. The core condensation monster didn't catch up. Li Mu didn't know if the monster had anything to do with the green snake, but it definitely had nothing to do with him. If it had evil intentions, he might not have a chance to escape when it arrived. Be careful. If you can beat it, fight it. If you can't beat it, run. This was the first rule. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't easily reveal his methods to others, Li Mu would have found a few more helpers. When they arrived at Gua village, Li Mu leaped over a wall and tossed the man into the yard. The woman hurriedly ran out and asked in panic, "My lord, what's going on?" Li Mu glanced at the man lying on the ground and said, "He has been bewitched by the demon. Every night, he runs out to let the demon absorb yang qi. That's why he is so sleepy during the day. As long as you keep an eye on him and don't let him go out, this kind of thing won't happen again." The woman asked anxiously, "Will that monster come looking for us?" Li Mu waved his hand and said, "No, just take care of your man." The snake demon was clearly not that bold. Otherwise, she would have fed on humans or gone around seducing men instead of waiting for them in the bamboo house. In the end, it was the man himself who couldn't resist the temptation, which gave the demon the opportunity to take advantage of him. "Thank you, my lord." The woman bent down and carried the man on her shoulder, saying, "I'll tie him up and keep him in the house. If he dares to run out again, I'll break his legs." Li Mu left Gua village and replaced the teleport talisman on his leg with a low-level talisman he drew himself. This high-level talisman was much faster than the one he drew. It could be used to save his life at a critical moment and could be used at a critical moment. He first went back to the government office and told the constable on duty about the green snake demon. Li Mu was just a small constable who had just entered the spirit-condensing realm. He wasn't qualified to deal with the matter of a shape-shifting demon, let alone a demon cultivator who had formed a demon core. The government office would send someone better to investigate. Although he didn't catch the green snake, Li Mu had sucked her lust to his heart's content. A demon with such a cultivation level would have a lot of emotional power. If it were an ordinary woman, Li Mu might have to suck thousands of them to reach the spirit-condensing realm. But if he sucked the green snake every day, he might be able to reach the spirit-condensing realm in less than a month. In fact, he shouldn't have made a bet with the green snake. He should have caught her and sucked her lust every day to help him cultivate. After tailing Gua village for a long time and fighting the green snake, he had to report back to the government office. When he got home, it was already midnight. Lu Hanyan and the others were already asleep. Li Mu didn't have time to eat in the afternoon. He was going to cook a bowl of noodles for himself. As soon as he walked into the yard, Lu Hanyan came out from the inner yard with a lantern in her hand. Li Mu asked in surprise, "Why aren't you asleep yet?" Lu Hanyan yawned and said, "I'm a little hungry and can't sleep. I'm going to cook a bowl of noodles. Do you want to join me?" Li Mu said, "Then cook a bowl for me too." Soon, Lu Hanyan cooked 2 bowls of clear soup noodles. The 2 of them ate in Li Mu's room. In addition to a few vegetables, Li Mu also had 2 poached eggs in his bowl. His appetite was greatly increased. He finished the noodles quickly and even drank the soup. When he put down the bowl, he saw that Lu Hanyan's noodles hadn't been touched. He was stunned for a moment and asked, "Why aren't you eating?" Lu Hanyan supported her chin with one hand and said, "I'm suddenly not hungry anymore. If you can still eat, eat mine too." Li Mu looked at her and picked up the bowl in front of her. Lu Hanyan seemed to have seen it. She suddenly grabbed his wrist, pulled up his sleeve and asked, "What happened to your hand?" Li Mu looked down and found that there was a bruise on his wrist, which should have been caused by the tail of the green snake just now. Although his body was also very strong, it still couldn't be compared with that of a monster. He lowered his head to eat the noodles and said, "I went out to handle a case at night and found a monster. I was injured when I was fighting with her." "How could you be so careless?" Lu Hanyan frowned and said, "Your skin is originally white and tender. It's so ugly to make it like this. I'll go and get the medicinal wine." Li Mu's body was strong and resilient. This kind of bruise could be healed in 2 years at most, but Lu Hanyan insisted on helping him apply the medicinal wine. Li Mu had reason to suspect that she just wanted to take this opportunity to touch him. But this time, he didn't find any desire on Lu Hanyan's body. Li Mu quickly finished the second bowl of noodles. Lu Hanyan put away the bowls and chopsticks and asked, "Are you still cultivating tonight?" Li Mu said, "I'm fine with anything. It's up to you." Lu Hanyan put away the bowls and walked out. She quickly came back in, took off her shoes, and sat cross-legged on the bed. Li Mu also got on the bed and sat opposite her. They began their daily dual cultivation. Lu Hanyan closed her eyes and suddenly said, "If you want to absorb my emotions, go ahead. Anyway, as long as I want a dual cultivation with you, I will have desire. Absorb a little every day, and there will be a time when you can condense your soul." Compared with the green snake's desire, Lu Hanyan's desire was pitifully small. Li Mu shook his head and said, "No, I'll find a chance to absorb from others in the future. Who do you want to absorb?" Lu Hanyan immediately opened her eyes and asked, "Do you want to marry a few more wives?" Li Mu looked at Lu Hanyan and asked, "What's wrong?" Li Si had once taught him that when pursuing a woman, he couldn't blindly pursue her. This would only reduce his bargaining chip in her heart. When appropriate, he had to be both hot and cold, neither close nor distant, so as to make her feel a sense of crisis and urgency. In any case, the 2 of them hadn't confirmed any relationship yet. Li Mu had the freedom to marry a wife according to the law. Lu Hanyan obviously also realized that Li Mu was her tenant and dual cultivation partner. She didn't seem to care about how many wives he wanted to marry in the future. She thought for a moment and explained, "I'm asking for Wanwan. It's not like you don't know how much she likes you. If you do this, she will be very sad." He wanted to make Lu Hanyan feel a sense of crisis, but he couldn't go too far. Li Mu said, "I only want to marry one at the moment." Lu Hanyan was somewhat satisfied in her heart, but she quickly realized that this didn't seem to be the best answer. If Li Mu really wanted to marry her, then what about Wanwan? Wanwan was the one who liked Li Mu first. If she snatched him away, how sad would Wanwan be? She couldn't make Wanwan sad. After thinking carefully, she looked at Li Mu and said, "I think, if you want to marry 2 people, Wanwan can also accept." Li Mu looked at Lu Hanyan and seemed to understand what she meant. Although she didn't say it, in fact, she and Li Mu both knew it very well. The 2 of them probably couldn't leave each other for the rest of their lives. Lu Hanyan's words just now meant that if he wanted to marry two people in the future, she could also accept it. Wan Wan was a servant girl, so she shouldn't be counted as a candidate. Was she hinting at Xiao Bai? Xiao Bai was already homeless. After transforming, she would definitely stay by Li Mu's side to repay his kindness. But she just said that Xiao Bai was a human, so she obviously couldn't be counted. Could it be that she was hinting at Li Qing? Chapter 140. Li Mu had only been in the prefecture capital for a few days, but he had already gained a lot. He had thought that he would only be able to condense the last two spirits when the time was right. He did not expect that he would be able to collect so much desire so quickly. More importantly, he had found a way to collect lust. Whether it was humans, ghosts, or demons, as long as they coveted Li Mu's yang qi, soul, beauty, body, etc., they would all generate desire. Now that he thought about it, he should not have sucked in too much of the green snake yesterday and been discovered by her. If he had pretended to be an ordinary person who had been charmed by her and contributed a little yang qi every day and absorbed a little desire, he would have accumulated enough desire to condense his soul in 2 months at most. He had been too careless. Early in the morning, Constable Zhao personally asked Li Mu about the details of last night's situation. Li Mu told him the truth about the green snake. Constable Zhao said worriedly, "One of them is in human form while the other is in core formation. This is not easy to deal with. I hope that the core formation demon will not cause any more trouble." After a while, he went to the back of the office. When he came out, he had a piece of jade in his hand. He handed the jade to Li Mu and said, "This is a spiritual jade. The jade contains spiritual qi and can be used directly for cultivation. Although you did not bring the snake demon back, you saved the commoner from her. You have completed your task. This spiritual jade is your reward." Li Qing had once mentioned to Li Mu that cultivation resources were abundant in the prefecture government. One could obtain spiritual jades, fulu, pills, magic weapons, and even secret techniques through completing tasks. These were the most important factors that attracted cultivators to work for the imperial court. There were no sects or clans to provide them with cultivation resources. This path was almost the only way to obtain cultivation resources that were allowed by the law, and it was also the only way for them to obtain cultivation resources. Spiritual jades were a type of jade that contained spiritual qi. They were also the most common and basic cultivation resource. They were originally just ordinary jades because they had the ability to store spiritual qi. If they were placed in a place with abundant spiritual qi, they would accumulate a large amount of spiritual qi over a long period of time. The quality and size of spiritual jades were different, and the spiritual energy contained in them differed greatly. The spiritual jade in Li Mu's hand was very small, and the spiritual energy contained in it was equivalent to 7 or 8 days of guided cultivation. This kind of errand allowed him to absorb desire and obtain cultivation resources. It was the best of both worlds. After absorbing the spiritual qi in the spiritual jade, Li Mu gently pinched the jade in his hand and it turned into fine powder. He didn't read the book. Instead, he sat quietly in the guardroom and used the soul-searching talisman to search through the memories in his mind. This time, he wasn't searching for himself, but the memories of Reverend Thousand Illusions. Previously, when Venerable Master Thousand Illusions failed to possess Li Mu's body, his consciousness was wiped out by the power of heaven and earth. However, his memories remained in Li Mu's body. At that time, these memories flashed through Li Mu's mind for a moment before quickly dissipating. Li Mu thought that those memories had completely disappeared, but when he accidentally used the soul-searching talisman, he discovered that those dissipated memories actually still remained in his mind. What surprised Li Mu was that through the soul-searching talisman, he could see not only the memories of the months when Venerable Master Thousand Illusions occupied Old Wang's body, but also the memories that belonged to the real Venerable Master Thousand Illusions. Venerable Master Thousand Illusions was one of the 10 great elders of the demon sect and a powerhouse of Dongxian. His memories were more useful to Li Mu than the Yaman's library. Although Li Mu had only searched a very small part of his memories, the contents of that part greatly broadened Li Mu's knowledge. The corpse sect was one of the 10 great sects of the demon sect. As an elder of the corpse sect, Venerable Master Thousand Illusions was very good at refining corpses. Less than half a month after the death of the old landlord Zhang, Venerable Master Thousand Illusions had used a secret technique to refine a jumping zombie with decades of cultivation. After that, he even used the Yin-Yang 5 Elements soul refining formation to raise the strength of the flying zombie to the level of Dongxian, directly deceiving the 3 Dongxian cultivators of the Fulu school and Xuanzong. Now that he thought about it, it was no wonder that he was so familiar with the altar under the Bay of Clearwater. For an elder of the corpse sect, that kind of corpse nurturing formation was nothing but child's play. In his memories, there were many cruel and bloody secret techniques of the demonic path. In addition to the Yin-Yang 5 Elements soul refining formation, there were also the 18 Yin prison formation, the 10 ghosts god-trapping formation, and other demonic path formations. Li Mu only skimmed through these and didn't understand them in detail. The Thousand Illusions demonic art, cultivated by Venerable Master Thousand Illusions, could create a split soul with all of his memories. By taking over someone else's body, he could be reborn and achieve immortality. Although Li Mu didn't plan to cultivate this demonic path technique, regardless of whether it was the demonic path or the righteous path, there were some similarities that he could learn from. He could learn from the Thousand Illusions demonic art's split soul technique and leave a life-saving skill for himself. Li Mu couldn't digest all of Venerable Master Thousand Illusions' memories in a short time. After searching for a short time, his head started to swell. He took off the soul-searching talisman and planned to rest for a while. A Yamen runner walked in from outside and said, "Li Mu, here's an invitation for you." Li Mu took the invitation and opened it to see that it was from shopkeeper Su. Tonight, he was hosting a banquet at the Su mansion and invited some friends. He also invited Li Mu to thank Li Mu for saving Su Hao's life. Li Mu hadn't decided whether or not to go. Compared to the delicacies of the Su mansion, he still preferred Lu Hanyan's home-cooked dishes. Lu Hanyan hadn't been in a good mood for the past 2 days. The construction of the Yunyan Pavilion branch didn't seem to be going smoothly. Zhang Shan returned to Yangqiu County for a few days and came to the county capital to help with the construction of the new Yunyan Pavilion. Zhang County magistrates had been Yangqiu County magistrate for many years and had enough experience. Although he was slow to realize the truth about Venerable Master Thousand Illusions' death, one of the 10 great elders of the demon sect, the Yangqiu County government had contributed greatly. As the county magistrate, his contributions were naturally not small. He took this opportunity to be promoted and placed in an important position by the imperial court. Zhang Shan had long had thoughts of resigning. Now that Zhang County magistrates had left, he also took this opportunity to resign from his post as a bailiff. He planned to help Lu Hanyan build a new Yunyan Pavilion in the county capital and buy his own residence within 10 years. Although Lu Hanyan was quite capable, she was still a woman and wasn't suited to show her face in certain matters. After asking Zhang Shan, Li Mu found out that the profits in the county capital had long been divided up by the major merchants. It was almost impossible for the new shop to interfere and take a share of the profits. Zhang Shan looked at Li Mu and asked, "Do you want to ask Li Si for help?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "No need." Li Si was living off a woman in the county magistrate's residence. Although no one in the county capital could bully him, it wasn't realistic for him to use his position to bully others. Li Mu walked into the inner courtyard and saw Lu Hanyan sitting by the stone table. She rested her chin on one hand and looked worried. Li Mu walked over and sat across from her. He asked, "What do you plan to do now?" Lu Hanyan said, "The bookstores, music stores, and opera houses have all been firmly occupied by those people. Nothing can enter. If there's really no other way, then we won't open a branch. In any case, the 4 shops in Yangqiu County are enough for us to spend our entire lives. Let's not think about these things." She shook her head and stood up. "What do you want to eat? I'll go cook." Compared to the banquet at the Su Manor, Li Mu still preferred to eat at home. He casually threw the invitation on the table and said, "Whatever. I'll eat whatever you cook." Lu Hanyan's gaze inadvertently skimmed over the invitation and saw that it was quite exquisite. She opened it and looked at it. She said in shock, "Why would the Su family invite you?" Li Mu said in surprise, "You know of the Su family?" "Of course." Lu Hanyan held the invitation and said, "They're also a major merchant in the county capital. If they're willing to help, the matter of the branch is nothing." Lu Hanyan looked expectantly at Li Mu and asked, "To think that the Su family would invite you to a banquet, and it was even personally invited by shopkeeper Su. Are you close to him?" Li Mu nodded and said, "We've only met once." Seeing Lu Hanyan's expression, Li Mu knew that this banquet was unavoidable. Although Li Mu and shopkeeper Su had only met once, after the banquet, Li Mu had mentioned to him that he had a friend who wanted to open a shop in the county capital. Shopkeeper Su had expressed a strong desire to take care of him. In the business world, the Su family was undoubtedly the local tyrant of the county capital. In just half a day, he had already helped the Yunyan Pavilion establish all the connections and even helped choose the location of the shop. This was undoubtedly telling everyone that the Yunyan Pavilion had the support of the Su family behind it. If anyone wanted to do anything wrong, they had to consider the Su family. Li Mu also did not expect that his small effort back then would be exchanged for the Su family's great help. Lu Hanyan came back from looking at the shop in the morning. She looked at Li Mu and said, "Thank you." Li Mu waved his hand. "We're on the same side. You're welcome." Lu Hanyan did not say much. She glanced in the direction of Li Mu's bedroom. Li Mu walked into the bedroom. Lu Hanyan followed him in and closed the door. Wan carried Xiao Bai and stood in front of the moon door. She muttered, "What do Miss and young master have to talk about every day in the room?" Chapter 141. In the next few days, Lu Hanyan was busy with the opening of the shop during the day and came to Li Mu's room to dual cultivate at night. She went from cultivating for 4 hours every day when she first came to the prefecture capital to spending the entire night in Li Mu's room, only returning at dawn. She cultivated for a shorter time than Li Mu, but now she had already condensed 4 spirits, only 1 less than Li Mu. This was partly because of her pure Yin body, and partly because of their dual cultivation. In the morning, Li Mu opened his eyes. Lu Hanyan, who was sitting cross-legged opposite him, her long eyelashes fluttered and her eyes also opened quickly. The two of them sat cross-legged opposite each other with their hands in front of them, holding each other tightly. At the beginning of dual cultivation, their palms were still facing each other. Later on, Lu Hanyan felt that it was too tiring to hold her hands up, so she suggested that Li Mu change positions. The two of them tried many positions, but in the end, they still felt that this one was the most energy efficient. Li Mu sensed the subtle changes in Lu Hanyan's body and asked in surprise, "You've refined the 5th spirit?" Lu Hanyan was slightly proud and said, "I'm the same as you now." Li Mu sighed inwardly. She had a complete pure Yin body. Under normal circumstances, her cultivation speed would be faster than Li Mu's. In addition, she had the fear of the 7 spirits and the courage that Li Mu collected for her. Her cultivation speed could be said to be extremely fast. Right now, he was still far away from the completion of his lust and love. Lu Hanyan would definitely refine the 7 spirits earlier than him. However, as of now, both of them had refined the 5 spirits, but the difference in their dermic powers was too great. If they really fought, Li Mu would be able to make her lie on the ground and beg for mercy in a very short period of time, even if he only used one hand. He stretched his body and said, "Go home early today. I'll teach you a Dao technique." "Dao techniques?" Lu Hanyan was shocked. Aren't Dao techniques not allowed to be taught to outsiders? The Dao techniques of those orthodox sects cannot be passed on to outsiders. My Dao techniques did not come from them, Li Mu explained. He then added, "Besides, you are not an outsider." Lu Hanyan felt a little sweet in her heart. She asked curiously, "Besides me, who else did you teach it to?" Li Mu was stunned for a moment, then he quickly got out of bed and said, "I'm going to be late. I'll go to the yamen first." Lu Hanyan saw his figure disappear quickly, and she already had an answer in her heart. A woman's silhouette appeared in her mind. She sighed, her heart aching. Then, she felt an even deeper sourness. Lu Hanyan turned to look at the door. She saw Wan Wan standing there with Li Mu's toiletries in her hands. Her expression was complicated. Lu Hanyan panicked for no reason. She immediately explained, "We're just cultivating." Wan Wan walked in and said, "I know. Miss also likes young master." "Nonsense. How could I like him? Don't worry, Mississippi. I won't be angry." Wan Wan walked to the bedside and whispered, "If it weren't for Miss, I would have starved to death. My life was saved by Miss, so my things are Miss's things." Lu Hanyan rubbed her head and said helplessly, "Why are you so silly?" Wan Wan's small face showed a charming smile. "I want to be with Miss and young master forever." Lu Hanyan sighed and said, "You must have freeloaded on him in the past." "He must have drugged you," Wan Wan pouted and said, "Then Miss must have drunk it too. Young master just left, and you chased him here. Miss is more anxious than me." "Little girl, you're getting more and more impudent. I have big and small. Miss is big, I'm small." Li Mu didn't even eat breakfast and slipped out of the house. Even a girl as indifferent as Li Qing would be angry because Li Mu passed the Qingxin formula to Lu Hanyan. If he told Lu Hanyan that he passed the confrontation formula to Li Qing first and not her, she probably wouldn't go to Li Mu's bed tonight. He casually bought 2 buns on the street. After filling his stomach, he went to the yamen. Because of his outstanding performance in the entrance examination, Li Mu didn't have to work hard on patrolling the streets. Most of the time, Li Mu stayed in the duty room alone. He originally planned to comb through Thousand Illusions' venerable master's memories. When he walked into the duty room, he found that Constable Zhao was also there. "Good morning, Constable Zhao." Li Mu walked into the duty room and greeted him. Constable Zhao walked over and said, "You're not early. I've been waiting for you." Li Mu asked, "Is there an errand again?" Constable Zhao nodded and said, "I originally planned to arrange for someone else to investigate this errand, but since you've come to the yamen, I think it's best for you to go." Li Mu asked, "What errand?" Constable Zhao said, "Do you still remember that you asked me about Chu Jiang of Gojoseon?" Li Mu had just killed a ghost general under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. Furthermore, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon was backed by the Nether Saint, who was also one of the 10 great elders of the demon sect. How could he forget? Li Mu probed, could this errand be related to Chu Jiang of Gojoseon? Constable Zhao smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm not asking you to capture Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. I just want you to investigate a place. This place may involve a ghost general under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. If it was just a ghost general, it would be fine. With Li Mu's current cultivation, even if he couldn't defeat a 4th realm ghost, he could still escape unscathed." Constable Zhao thought that he still had concerns and said, "Don't worry, this errand isn't too dangerous. If it weren't for the fact that the prefectural governor wants to investigate whether Chu Jiang of Gojoseon has any conspiracy behind his back, he would have already taken action himself. With your strength, you should be able to handle it easily." Li Mu asked, "What errand is it? Please tell me in detail, Constable Zhao." Constable Zhao nodded and said, "We need you to investigate a brothel. That brothel may be related to a ghost general under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. It's easy to kill that ghost general, but the prefectural governor wants to find out Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's secret through that ghost general." Li Mu was puzzled. What secret could Chu Jiang of Gojoseon have? Constable Zhao sighed and said, "The Nether Saint has the 10 kings of hell under him. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon is ranked 2nd among the 10 kings of hell. His cultivation has reached the peak of the 5th realm. He must have a motive for leaving the Soul Sect and coming to the remote northern county." Li Mu was still puzzled. "There are many colleagues in the yamen who have higher cultivation than me. Why would he choose me?" Constable Zhao looked at him and said, "Firstly, the other people in the yamen are all familiar faces. It's easy to be exposed. The 10 of you have just arrived at the yamen and are not familiar with your colleagues, let alone outsiders. Secondly, the person who carries out this errand needs to have strong willpower. He must be able to resist the temptation of beauty and maintain a clear mind at all times. He must also have the courage to face danger without fear." Li Mu thought for a while and said, Actually, Li Si is more suitable for this errand than me. Constable Zhao sighed and said, I've also thought about Li Si. He has no cultivation, so he won't arouse suspicion. But it's because he has no cultivation that he can't protect himself if something happens. If something happens to him, the prefectural governor will blame us. No one can bear the responsibility. He looked at Li Mu and said, You're different. Although you only have the cultivation of the spirit condensing realm, you can fight against demons in human form and escape from those in the core condensing realm. You're the most suitable person to carry out this errand. Li Mu hesitated. If it was just a ghost general, it would be fine. But Chu Jiang of Gojoseon was a fifth realm ghost cultivator. He was even stronger than Su He. He was an opponent that Li Mu couldn't defeat even if he used a cheat. Constable Zhao added, The brothel is in the prefecture capital. At most, there will be a fourth realm ghost general. Maybe it's not even at the fourth realm. After you complete the errand, you'll receive a generous reward. Li Mu thought for a while and asked, How generous? Constable Zhao said, You can choose 30 pieces of spiritual jade. You can also choose treasures of similar value, such as fulu and so on. 30 pieces of spiritual jade was equivalent to about half a year of his guidance cultivation. Li Mu's expression turned serious and he said, The reward isn't important. What's important is to get rid of evil for the people. He quickly thought of something and asked Constable Zhao, If I kill one of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's ghost generals, will the Yamen reward me? Constable Zhao said, There are 18 ghost generals under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. You'll receive a generous reward for killing any one of them. The stronger the ghost general is, the more generous the reward. After he finished speaking, he realized something and looked at Li Mu and asked, You killed one of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's ghost generals? At this time, Li Mu didn't need to hide anymore and said, Shopkeeper Su's son was captured by one of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's ghost generals. I killed him while I was at it. Constable Zhao was stunned and asked, So that's why you asked me about Chu Jiang of Gojoseon at that time? Li Mu nodded. Constable Zhao looked at him in surprise and said, I'll bring you to see the county lieutenant. Li Mu had been in the Yamen for a few days, but he had never seen the county governor or the county lieutenant. They all had their own mansions and wouldn't come to the Yamen unless there was something important. The county lieutenant, on the other hand, was usually in the Yamen, but he had never shown his face. Constable Zhao led Li Mu to a spacious hall. Li Mu stood at the door. Before he even stepped in, he could smell a strong smell of alcohol. A few wine jars were carelessly thrown on the ground. A man was slumped on a chair, holding a wine jar in his hand and drinking wine with his head tilted back. Constable Zhao shook his head and walked forward. He said, Sir, I have something to report. He whispered a few words and the man suddenly opened his eyes. The drunkenness in his eyes was gone and he stared straight at Li Mu. He asked, You killed one of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's ghost generals? Li Mu nodded and said, It was just a coincidence. The man waved his hand and many ghosts appeared in the air in front of Li Mu. The man asked, Which one? Li Mu immediately recognized the evil ghost he had killed. He pointed at the last of the ghosts and said, It's him. That's right. The man glanced at Li Mu and said to Constable Zhao, Bring him to the Xian house and choose anything. When Li Mu walked out, he looked at Constable Zhao in confusion and asked, The county governor knows about the death of the ghost generals. Could it be? Constable Zhao smiled and said, Do you think that Chu Jiang of Gojoseon has been in the North County for so long that the officials would not be on guard? Li Mu said in shock, Could it be that we have spies under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon? Constable Zhao did not say anything else. He led Li Mu to a pavilion and went straight to the second floor. He said, This is the Xian house. You can choose any one of the Fulu and Dharma treasures here or convert them into spiritual jades. Li Mu looked around and saw rows of wooden shelves in the room. The first row of shelves had dozens of Fulu arranged neatly. The second row of shelves had all kinds of Dharma treasures. There were bronze mirrors, jade hairpins, short swords, long swords, etc. The third row of shelves was filled with spiritual jades. Constable Zhao walked to the middle of the first row of shelves and pointed at a fulu. He said, "I suggest that you choose this guiding thunder talisman. This fulu can kill demonic ghosts of the fourth realm and below. It can save your life at a critical moment." Li Mu smiled and glanced at the fulu. To him, the thunder talisman was a useless talisman. Its power was not as strong as the confrontation formula, and it was a one-time use item. He wanted to choose spiritual jades, but when he passed by the wooden shelves with all kinds of Dharma treasures, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. His gaze swept across the bronze mirrors and all kinds of weapons. Finally, it stopped on a jade hairpin. This jade hairpin was very simple. It was made of white jade without any other color. There was a pearl flower embedded at the top of the hairpin. It looked like an ordinary white jade hairpin. Li Mu stood in front of the shelf and thought for a moment. He said, "I want this." Chapter 142. After coming down from the small building, Li Mu raised his head and looked up. There were 4 floors in this building. Each floor had a square wooden plaque. From top to bottom, they were respectively heaven, earth, black, and yellow. This was the treasure vault of the county government. It was used to store the rewards of the county government. According to the contributions of the officials, the rewards were divided into 4 levels. The higher the floor, the higher the grade of the magic treasures. It was said that in the heaven floor, there were heaven-grade fulu, heaven-grade magic treasures, and Taoist techniques as rewards. Of course, items of this level would not be stored here. They would need to ask the imperial court for permission from the emperor himself. Then, the imperial court would distribute them. Li Mu did not even need to think about heaven-grade merits. Unless he killed a demon sect elder like the Thousand Illusions Venerable or the Nether Saint, or destroyed a demon sect's subsect by himself. Those who could do all these did not care about these rewards. Those who cared about these rewards did not have the ability to obtain them. Li Mu did not have any extravagant hopes. Thinking about the scene in the back hall, he asked Constable Zhao, "The county governor seems to hate Chu Jiang of Gojoseon very much." Constable Zhao sighed and shook his head. "The county governor and Chu Jiang of Gojoseon have a blood feud. His parents, wife, and children all died at the hands of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon." Thinking about the county governor's appearance, Li Mu was shocked. Constable Zhao continued, "When the county governor first came to the North County, he took the lead. When he encountered dangerous tasks, he always rushed in front of everyone. The 18 ghost generals under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon committed all kinds of crimes in the 13 districts of the North County. The county governor killed 5 of them in half a month. Even the number 1 ghost general that Chu Jiang of Gojoseon valued the most was killed by the county governor." Li Mu didn't expect the commandery officer to have such a past. Thinking of the drunkard just now, he couldn't associate him with such a brave image. Constable Zhao's face was filled with grief as he said, "When the 5 ghost generals were killed, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon was enraged. He personally took action and exterminated the prefectural governor's family. Since then, the prefectural governor has become what he is now. He hates Chu Jiang of Gojoseon to the core. Otherwise, with your contribution in killing an evil spirit, you wouldn't have been able to choose resources from the Xian." While Li Mu sighed in his heart, he also raised his vigilance. As a bailiff, his duty was to protect the safety of the people under his jurisdiction. He often had to risk his life against these demons and ghosts. Even if he wasn't afraid of them, he had to be on guard against them attacking the people around him. It was urgent to improve the strength of Lu Hanyan and Wanwan. He left through the back door of the county office. For a long time, Li Mu's task was to investigate the secrets of the brothel called Spring Wind Pavilion. In order to not attract attention, he didn't have to come to the yamen again. Going from the back street to the main street, Li Mu hesitated for a moment when he passed by a jewelry store. He walked in and bought a hairpin. Then he went to the market and bought the pig trotters that Wanwan liked and the roasted chicken that Xiaobai liked. He took them home. Lu Hanyan didn't go out today. Seeing Li Mu, she said in surprise, "Why are you so early today?" "There's nothing going on in the yamen today." Li Mu put the things in the kitchen and asked, You didn't go to the store? With Zhang Shan there won't be any problems. Lu Hanyan glanced at him and said, besides, didn't you tell me to come back early? Li Mu didn't say anything else. He took out the jade hairpin and handed it to her, saying, this is for you. Lu Hanyan didn't immediately reach out to take it. She asked, why are you suddenly giving me something? She glanced at Li Mu and saw that his expression was normal. She was suspicious. Did he know what it meant for a man to give a woman a hairpin? Li Mu said, if you don't want it, I'll give it to Wan Wan. Lu Hanyan finally reached out to take it. Li Mu looked at the little maid who had a disappointed expression. He walked over and pinched her face with a smile, saying, of course, there's also yours. He took out a brocade box from his sleeve and handed it to her, saying, see if you like it. The little maid's face bloomed with a smile again. She hurriedly took the brocade box and opened it. She was stunned for a moment. A jade hairpin lay quietly in the brocade box. The jade hairpin was exquisitely made. The body of the hairpin was carved with beautiful patterns. At the top was a beautiful pearl flower with beautiful tassels hanging from the bottom. No matter how she looked at it, this jade hairpin was much more beautiful than the previous one. Compared to this jade hairpin, Lu Hanyan's hairpin was just an ordinary white jade with a bead embedded in the back. Wan Wan lowered her head and hesitated for a moment. She held the jade hairpin and walked in front of Lu Hanyan, saying, Miss, this is for you. Lu Hanyan also pinched her face and said, since it's for you, you should take it. Li Mu knew that Wan Wan and Lu Hanyan had a deep relationship. If Lu Hanyan hadn't taken her in, she would have been abandoned by her parents and starved to death in the wilderness. Therefore, she always wanted to give the best things to Lu Hanyan. When she saw that her hairpin was more beautiful than hers, her first thought was to exchange it with her. Lu Hanyan treated her as a younger sister, but in her heart, she had always regarded herself as a maid. Although Xiaobai envied Lu Hanyan and Wan Wan's gifts, she also knew that before she could transform, these beautiful clothes and jewelry could only be looked at. After dinner, she couldn't wait to go back to her room to cultivate. Li Mu and Lu Hanyan washed the dishes together and said, come out of the city with me. Lu Hanyan asked, why are we going out of the city? Li Mu said, you'll know in a while. After instructing Wan Wan and Xiaobai to guard the door at home, Li Mu and Lu Hanyan walked out of the house and out of the city. Lu Hanyan didn't say much along the way. Li Mu knew what she was thinking and explained, your hairpin is different from Wan Wan's. I know it's different. Lu Hanyan curled her lips and said, you like Wan Wan and Constable Li. You give them all the good things first and then they give the rest to me. After all, I'm not as good at fighting as Constable Li, and I'm not as obedient as Wan Wan. I'm not your type. If Li Mu could go back to a few months ago, he would definitely slap himself in the face. Now, he could only cough softly and say, actually, that was just a joke. Apart from being better at fighting than you, and Wan Wan being more obedient than you, what else can she compare to you? You're multi-talented, you're good in the kitchen, you're beautiful and rich, and you're talented in cultivation. Which man wouldn't like someone like you? Lu Hanyan's beautiful eyes flashed with a glimmer of light. You really think so? Li Mu pointed to the sky and said, I swear on my Taoist heart. Lu Hanyan lowered her head and said, Bah, who asked you to swear? Li Mu smiled and asked, you're not jealous now, are you? Really, you're even jealous of Wan? Lu Hanyan blushed and snorted, who's jealous? Li Mu realized that his previous understanding of Lu Hanyan was still somewhat wrong. When she was cute, she didn't lose to Wan Wan at all. With her talent, it was only a matter of time before she surpassed Li Qing. He was really blind to have been so focused on condensing his soul back then. At some point, the two of them had left the official road, and there was no one around. If it were anyone else, Lu Hanyan naturally wouldn't have followed them to such a desolate place. She just looked at Li Mu in confusion and asked, why did you bring me here? After Li Mu confirmed that there was no one around, he said, take out that hairpin. I said that your hairpins are different, but it's not what you think. Lu Hanyan took out the hairpin, and Li Mu formed the army formula with his hand. With a thought, the hairpin flew out from Lu Hanyan's hand and danced in the air. Li Mu's thought moved again, and the hairpin streaked across the air, piercing straight into a tree not far away. A small hole appeared on the trunk of the tree, through which light could penetrate. Lu Hanyan's red lips slightly opened, and she said in astonishment, "Is this a magic weapon?" Li Mu recalled the hairpin and asked, "Are you still jealous?" Lu Hanyan's pretty face turned red. She pinched his waist and said, "Don't mention it." Li Si said that when a woman starts to not avoid physical contact, even if it's physical abuse, it means that the distance between two people has been greatly reduced. If a woman doesn't like you, she won't even bother to look at you. Li Mu rubbed the soft flesh on his waist, and his heart was slightly happy. He continued, "I'll teach you the art of silence first, and then I'll teach you this Tao technique. Practice it every day, and in the future, when you encounter danger, you'll be able to catch your opponent off guard." The use of the army formula was to use an extremely small amount of dermic powers to activate magic treasures. Originally, only cultivators above the transcendent realm could master this ability. Lu Hanyan's hairpin, compared to Li Mu's Bai sword, was lighter and more agile, and also more concealed. This hairpin itself is a magic weapon. If it pierces a person's heart or brain, it can be a one-hit kill. Even if it's a transcendent realm cultivator, if they're not prepared and this hairpin pierces a vital point, their body will instantly die. Lu Hanyan clumsily controlled the hairpin. She asked, "Where did you get this hairpin?" Li Mu said, "I killed an evil spirit last time. I used my merit to exchange for it at the yamen." Lu Hanyan's gaze wandered. She asked, Why didn't you exchange it for something else?" Li Mu did not answer this question. He said, "Focus on practicing. I didn't even teach you this Tao technique." Lu Hanyan's eyes flashed with a hint of joy, but she said, "What does it have to do with me whether you teach it to others or not? Women always say one thing and mean another." Previously, when Li Qing was angry, she also said the same thing. After practicing for a while, seeing that Lu Hanyan was already able to control the hairpin steadily, Li Mu formed the 6-ding jade maiden mudra and said, "Watch this Tao technique carefully. Combined with what I just taught you, you can kill a third realm cultivator." Boom! Just as he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning struck from the sky. After Li Mu's research during this period of time, he figured out how to use the confrontation formula and the army formula in combination. Using Lu Hanyan's jade hairpin as an example, he first used the army formula to destroy the enemy's physical body unexpectedly. Regardless of whether it was a demon or a human, once their vitals were pierced, their physical body would die instantly. As for third realm demons and assembled spirit cultivators, after their physical bodies died, their souls could still leave their bodies and survive. After the army formula, he followed up with the confrontation formula. One destroyed the body, the other destroyed the soul. This combination was clean and efficient. Under normal circumstances, the enemy would not even have the chance to react before their souls were scattered. Lu Hanyan's dermic powers were ultimately not as good as Li Mu's. After practicing for only 10 or so times, her dermic powers were depleted. Leaning against a tree, she could not even stand stably. Li Mu walked to her side and said, "I forgot to tell you. Although Tao techniques don't consume much dermic powers, your dermic powers are still too weak. You can't practice for long periods of time. It's best to start with archery and throwing. Why didn't you say so earlier?" Lu Hanyan leaned against the tree, her chest rising and falling slightly. She said unhappily, "My legs are wobbly now. How can I go back?" Li Mu thought for a moment and asked, "How about I carry you?" Chapter 143. Although Lu Hanyan refused verbally, her body was very honest. Her physical strength and magic power were seriously overdrawn. If she didn't let Li Mu help, she could only crawl back. Li Mu gave her 3 choices. She could either hug, piggyback, or crawl back on her own. After thinking for a while, she still chose to let Li Mu piggyback her. She lay on Li Mu's back and hooked her arms around his neck. She said suspiciously, "Did you do it on purpose? Just now you kept telling me to practice more. Li Mu, do you think I want to piggyback you? You're so heavy, Lu Hanyan snorted and said, what do you know? It's not like the lighter a woman is, the better. She wasn't wrong. Women weighed less than 100, so they were either flat-chested or short. Lu Hanyan's chest was flat, and she wasn't short either. She was hinting to Li Mu that she had a good figure and where her flesh should be. Li Mu shook his head and said, how would I know? It's my first time piggybacking a woman. Lu Hanyan curled her lips. Isn't it my first time being piggybacked? Li Mu piggybacked her and walked straight along the official road. Lu Hanyan rested her head on his back and suddenly asked, what you said last time, is it true? Which one? You said that in 2 years, if you and I haven't married, we'll be together. Li Mu's footsteps paused, and then he continued forward. Of course it's true. Lu Hanyan said, didn't you say that I'm not your type? That's because I'm stubborn. Who wouldn't like someone like you? Li Mu asked as he walked. So you agree? Lu Hanyan's lips curled up. It depends on your performance in the future. Li Mu had been waiting for her to say this for a long time. He let out a sigh of relief, and his footsteps became lighter. Lu Hanyan said again, however, I have another condition. Li Mu asked, what conditions? Lu Hanyan said, Wan and I will never be separated for the rest of our lives. Li Mu asked, what do you mean? Lu Hanyan snorted and said, don't play dumb. Don't think that I don't know that you had this idea from the beginning. When you used the barbecue to lure Wanwan, you had this idea in your heart, right? Li Mu defended himself. I can swear to the heavens that at that time, I didn't have any thoughts about you. Lu Hanyan was jealous. At that time, you were interested in Constable Li, weren't you? Li Mu knew that she was starting to be jealous of Li Qing again. He changed the topic and asked, when can we start the real dual cultivation? As expected, Lu Hanyan's attention was diverted by this question. She said softly, don't even think about it now. We'll talk about it when you marry me. Li Mu actually didn't think about it now. There were too many resources that could be used to cultivate the lower 3 realms. Soul power, courage, and spirit jades. Even if they didn't cultivate yin and yang dual cultivation, their cultivation speed wouldn't be too slow. After reaching the middle 3 realms, the effect of these resources would be minimal. Only then would the real effect of dual cultivation be revealed. Moreover, the first real dual cultivation was very important. It would be a great waste to integrate the primordial yang and primordial yin that they had accumulated for many years. Lu Hanyan was exhausted. Lying on Li Mu's back, her heart was very calm, and she soon fell asleep. She didn't wake up until Li Mu carried her home. Tonight, she probably didn't have the strength to do dual cultivation. Li Mu carried her to the bed in her room. When he walked out of the door, he said to Wan, come with me to my room. The little maid followed him into the room. She lowered her head and rubbed the corner of her clothes. She asked, young master, what's the matter? Li Mu said, do you still remember that I told you that your eyes are very rare spirit eyes? Wan nodded and said, I remember. Li Mu patted her head and said, although spirit eyes are rare, they can see things that ordinary people can't, especially some yin spirits and ghosts. So I sealed your spirit eyes. Now that you have mana, you can control your spirit eyes. I will help you remove the seal. In the future, you can cultivate your eyes according to the method I taught you. Wan nodded obediently and said, I will listen to you, young master. Old Wang once gave Li Mu a book on cultivating spirit eyes. He obtained more information from the memories of monk Qianhuan. He could help Wan find a correct path to cultivate spirit eyes. Li Mu formed a seal with his hands and wiped Wan's eyes. When she opened her eyes again, her eyes became clearer and brighter. It was like a whirlpool, as if it wanted to suck in Li Mu's entire mind. Li Mu quickly looked away, and that feeling disappeared. He was secretly shocked. Wan had only cultivated 2 souls and unconsciously used spirit eyes. She could already make his mind tremble. When she learned how to use this talent, it would not be difficult for her to cross realms to control. Soul, body, and primordial spirit would be completely restrained by her. This made Li Mu realize that if he did not work hard, He would not be able to catch up to Lu Hanyan. Perhaps even Wanwan could suppress him. When this task was completed, he planned to choose a magic treasure for Wanwan. He wanted to be fair, so that they would not think that he was biased. After Wanwan left, Xiaobai jumped in through the window and onto the bed. She quietly crawled to Li Mu's side. These few days, Lu Hanyan stayed at his place. Li Mu did not have time to use the light of Buddha to remove the demonic aura in her body. The demonic aura in her body became more obvious. This did not seem to be a long-term solution. Li Mu helped her every night, but he could only help her for a while. It was better to let her cultivate on her own. Demons were actually similar to humans in their cultivation. They could learn human supernatural powers and Tao techniques. Many demons would also take the path of cultivation of Taoism or Buddhism. Their bodies were originally strong, so it was more suitable for them to cultivate Buddhist supernatural powers. After using Buddhism to cleanse the demonic aura in their body, not only would their bodies become stronger, but some supernatural powers that targeted demons would also be useless to them. However, Xiaobai had not yet transformed, so she could not cultivate human cultivation methods. Even if Li Mu wanted to teach her, he would have to wait until she transformed. For Li Mu, the most important thing right now was to investigate Spring Wind Pavilion. According to the Yaman's information, this pavilion was very likely to be related to Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. To be safe, Li Mu decided to make sufficient preparations before the official investigation. There was no need to go to the Yaman for the time being. After Li Mu woke up, he made breakfast and waited for Lu Hanyan and the others to wake up. Lu Hanyan had slept with Wanwan last night. When she woke up and saw Li Mu, she asked in surprise, "You don't have to go to the Yaman today?" Li Mu replied, "I don't have to go these days." Lu Hanyan said, "That's good. After breakfast, let's go take a look at the shops together." With the help of the Su family, the branch of Yunyan Pavilion was progressing smoothly. Lu Hanyan bought 2 shops and recruited enough people. If all went well, the shops could open within a month. The operation of the music house and opera house was more troublesome than the bookstore and tea house. Perhaps because she felt that 4 shops were too exhausting, she only opened the bookstore and tea house in the county capital. There was no need to recruit musicians and performers, so it was much simpler. Li Mu also didn't want her to be too tired. The 2 shops were handed over to the shopkeepers to manage, so she could have more time to cultivate. In the future, it would be good to cook at home and take care of the children. Li Mu, Wanwan, and Lu Hanyan were walking on the street. When the 2 girls passed by a jewelry shop, they planned to go in and pick a few pieces. Li Mu stood outside and waited for them. Opposite the jewelry shop was a brothel. Several women with heavy makeup were trying their best to solicit customers. "Young master, come in and take a look." Shopkeeper Wang, "A new batch of tea came in yesterday. Don't you want to try it?" "Young Master Qian, several of our girls miss you." Li Mu's eyes swept over the women. He raised his head and saw the plaque, Spring Wind Pavilion, hanging above the brothel. A golden light flashed in his eyes, but he didn't see anything unusual about Spring Wind Pavilion. The brothel keeper and prostitutes at the door were all human women. There was no ghostly or demonic aura around Spring Wind Pavilion. Everything was normal. Chapter 144. Chen Miao Miao noticed Li Si's abnormality. She turned around and asked in confusion, "Li Si, what's wrong?" Li Si wiped his tears and said, "It's nothing. The wind is a little strong today. I think some sand got into my eyes." Chen Miao Miao said with concern, "Let me help you blow." "No need." Li Si said, "I'll be fine after I cry for a while." Lu Hanyan saw someone familiar and quickly let go of Li Mu's hand. Wanwan also let go. Li Mu glanced at Li Si and smiled at Chen Miao Miao. "Miss Miao Miao is back." Chen Miao Miao looked at Li Mu in confusion. She quickly remembered and smiled. "It's you. We met in Yangqiu County." Li Mu didn't want to disturb Li Si and Chen Miao Miao's reunion. He smiled and said, "We still have some things to do. We won't disturb you. You can continue shopping." Ever since she met Chen Miao Miao, Wanwan had a lot on her mind. Li Mu accompanied Lu Hanyan to look at the unfinished shop. Wanwan couldn't help but ask, "Young mistress, will I look like Miss Meow Meow in the future? Just keep your little heart in your stomach." Lu Hanyan patted her head gently and comforted her. "Miss Meow Meow didn't want to be like this. She doesn't eat as much as you." She then looked at Li Mu and asked, "Is Li Si really together with Miss Meow Meow?" Li Mu had told her about Lin Wan's case and also about Li Si and Chen Meow Meow. He nodded and said, "I'm afraid he has no choice but to be together with her." Lu Hanyan said, "That's good too. Otherwise, he won't be doing his job and loitering around brothels." Actually, he wasn't like this before. Having received a lot of favors from Li Si, Li Mu decided to defend him. In the past, he was just like me. He wouldn't even take a second look at the brothels when he passed by. He has a fiancée named Qing Qing. Qing and he are childhood sweethearts. He scrimps and saves every day, eating steamed buns and drinking water to save up his salary. He wants to gather enough betrothal gifts for Qing Qing. Lu Hanyan listened attentively and asked, "What happened next?" Li Mu said slowly, "Later, when he gathered all the betrothal gifts, Qing Qing had already married a rich man as a concubine. She despised Li Si for being too poor and unable to give her the life she wanted." Lu Hanyan frowned and said, "The life you want depends on your own efforts. It's fine if you don't marry this kind of woman. She doesn't have any self-reliance and self-respect. She deserves to be a man's vassal for the rest of her life. It's not worth it for him to fall for such a woman." With Lu Hanyan's own experience, it was normal for her to look down on these women who worshipped money. Li Mu said, "Men can't forget their first love. Qing Qing was the first woman Li Si liked. The deeper the love, the deeper the hurt. Qing Qing, Qing Qing." Lu Hanyan seemed to have thought of something. She looked at Li Mu and asked, "So, you also can't forget Arrestor Li?" Li Mu looked around and suddenly said, "What, are you hungry? Let's go eat." The prefectural minister's manner. Chen Miao Miao sent Li Si back to his room and said, "If there's anything else you need, just tell me. I'll have my father prepare it." Li Si was silent for a moment. He turned his head to look at her and said, "Actually, there's something I've been hiding from you." Chen Miao Miao was stunned and asked, "What is it?" Li Si said, "My name isn't Li Si. My name is Li Si." Chen Miao Miao asked doubtfully, Then when we first met, why did you say your name was Li Shan?" "To hide my identity and purpose." Li Si's eyes were apologetic. He said, "In order to bring Zhao Yong to justice, I had no choice but to lie to you." Chen Miao Miao's face gradually paled. She muttered, "So, you've been lying to me all this time. You've never liked me?" Li Si didn't answer directly. He only sighed and said, "You're a good girl with a good family background and a kind heart. I'm just a small bailiff. I only have a salary of 500 coins a month and I often hang around brothels. I'm not as good as you think." Chen Miao Miao shook her head and said, "I don't care about your past or your identity. I only care if you're sincere to me." Li Si said, "I'm so poor that I can't even support myself. You won't be happy if you follow me." Chen Miao Miao raised her head and said, "As long as I can be with the person I like, I'll be happy. If you feel uncomfortable here, we can go back to Yangqiu County. If you can't support me, then I'll support you. I can pawn those gold and silver jewelry and exchange it for money. It's enough for us to live. We can also do a small business. We can live well without father's care." Li Si stared at her in a daze. The image of a woman nestled in someone else's arms, ignoring his pleas, and closing the vermilion door appeared before his eyes once more. "You're just a small bailiff. You won't have any future in your life. I won't be happy if I follow you." The woman's words were still deeply engraved in his heart. He looked at Chen Miao Miao and suddenly laughed. Li Si raised his hand and wiped away her tears. He said, "Everything I've said to you is true." Chen Miao Miao smiled through her tears. She held his hand and said, "I'm also true. I'm willing to go to Yangqiu County with you because I want to suffer with you." Li Si shook his head and said, "You're willing to suffer with me, but I'm not willing to let you suffer. Let's stay in the county capital." In the past few days, Li Mu and Lu Hanyan's relationship had warmed up daily. Although she would ask some questions about death from time to time, under Li Si's influence and guidance, they were able to survive each dangerous situation safely. When he saw Li Si again, Li Mu was shocked. 3 days ago, he was only an ordinary person without any mana. 3 days later, he had already refined the 3 souls. Zhang Shan shook his head and said, "Nothing, my eyes are a bit blurry." Chapter 145. Spring Wind Pavilion. As soon as Li Mu walked in, the brothel keeper greeted him with a smile. "Young master, do you know any girls? Would you like me to recommend them to you?" "Li Mu, it's my first time here." The smile on the brothel keeper's face became bigger. "Oh, it's a new guest. Today, you must serve the young master well. Xiang Xiang, Xiao Xiao, Rong Rong, you 3 come here." Several girls were called over by the brothel keeper. The brothel keeper approached Li Mu and asked with a smile, "These 3 are the top girls in our shop. They are proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Young master, which one do you like?" Li Mu took a step back, keeping a distance from the brothel keeper, and looked at the 3 girls opposite him. Of the 3, one was petite and cute, one had a hot figure, and one was tall and cold. Li Mu thought for a moment, pointed to the 3rd one, and said, "She is." The brothel keeper said, "Rong Rong, why don't you lead the young master upstairs?" "Young master, please." The cold woman said coldly to Li Mu and turned to go upstairs. Although it was Li Mu's first time in a brothel, he knew that the attitude of a brothel woman to a guest was not like this. Li Si and Li Mu had said this kind of trick was just one of the methods they used to attract guests. This woman was not really cold, this was just her character. After all, the guests who could choose her were generally a little masochistic. They liked this kind of cold type, which made them more excited. The woman opened the door of a room and led Li Mu in. Then, she sat on the edge of the bed and pretended to be unapproachable. Li Mu walked to her side and asked, "Can you play the zither?" The woman was stunned for a moment and shook her head. "Can you play the flute?" The woman continued to shake her head. "How about the pipa?" The woman still shook her head. Li Mu waved his hand and said, "You can't do this, you can't do that, and you have the nerve to say that you're proficient in everything. Go down and tell the brothel keeper to get someone who can do these things." The woman was stunned for a moment. Then, she suddenly stood up and walked downstairs angrily. She said to the procuress, "There's a strange person here. He doesn't do what he should do and only wants to listen to music. Is he crazy? Who would come to a brothel to listen to music? I can't take this job. In this world, there are all kinds of hobbies. I usually ask you to practice the zither, but you don't listen. Now you're blaming the customer." The brothel keeper shook her head and said to the voluptuous woman, "Qiao Qiao, you go." Li Mu sat in the room for a while. The plump woman named Qiao Qiao, whom the brothel keeper had introduced just now, swayed her hips and walked in. She hugged De Guqin and asked with a smile, "Young master, what song do you want me to play?" "Li Mu, just play whatever you know." The woman put De Guqin aside and began to take off her clothes. Li Mu was stunned for a moment and asked, "If you want to play the zither, then play the zither. Why are you taking off your clothes?" The plump woman was startled and asked, "Do I have to wear it and play it?" Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Wear it." The woman looked at him strangely. She could only sit down and play the zither with both hands. This woman's zither skills could only be regarded as a beginner. But it was still incomparable to Lu Hanyan. Li Mu was used to Lu Hanyan playing the zither. Listening to her again, it was somewhat boring. The woman played the zither and found that there was no movement beside the bed. She looked up and found that the young customer was lying on the bed asleep. She couldn't help but feel strange. In the past few months, she had served a lot of customers, but this was the first time she met someone like him. He came to the brothel and didn't look for physical entertainment. He only listened to music and fell asleep. However, she was not too surprised. She had seen men with all kinds of hobbies. Some people's hobbies in this area were so abnormal that it made people's hair stand on end. Compared to them, this young master was nothing. She played for a while and saw that the other party had fallen asleep. Her fingers left the strings, stood up, and lit an incense burner. As the incense burner emitted green smoke, a trace of weak yang qi drifted out from Li Mu's body and was absorbed into the incense burner. After doing this, the woman walked to the bed and looked at Li Mu's face. She murmured, "You look so handsome, where can't you find a woman? Why did you come to this kind of place?" She gently stroked Li Mu's face and sighed, "What a handsome young master." Li Mu, who was lying on the bed, already knew what this brothel was doing secretly. They were the same as the green snake, sucking people's yang qi. However, the green snake was obviously not smart enough. It only grabbed one person and sucked. Naturally, it was easy to reveal flaws and be noticed by the authorities. And the same method of sucking people's yang qi, this brothel's method was much more brilliant. The customers who came here were originally here to have fun. Coincidentally, their way of having fun was also very physically and mentally exhausting. This way, even if they lost some yang qi, no one would notice. The lack of yang qi was not much different from the lack of kidney qi. They didn't need to absorb too much from a person. As long as the brothel was open, there would be an endless stream of customers. The yang qi was inexhaustible. This woman was not a demon ghost, nor was she a cultivator. She mainly relied on that strange incense burner to absorb yang qi. In order not to arouse suspicion, Li Mu took the initiative to release a trace of yang qi for her to absorb. He also didn't absorb too much of this woman's lust, so that she wouldn't feel the slightest discomfort. In the process of carrying out his task, he didn't forget to take advantage of her. After all, whether or not she could complete the collection of yang qi and successfully condense the sixth essence depended on this. Li Mu didn't know where the yang qi absorbed by the incense burner went. He was only here today to find out. During this period, he would probably become a regular here. After all, the county government didn't want to destroy this place. They wanted to secretly investigate and find out the secret of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon. He had absorbed enough of yang qi. If he continued, this woman would notice. Li Mu heaved a sigh of relief and slowly opened his eyes. "Young master, you're awake." The woman sat by the bed and smiled. "Do you want me to help you bathe?" "No need. I just want to sleep for a while." Li Mu said, "I haven't been sleeping well these few days. After listening to your song, I feel much better. I'll look for you again next time." The woman stared blankly as Li Mu got off the bed, put on his shoes and walked out. She sat by the bed and said in surprise, "That's it." "That's it?" Downstairs, Li Mu looked at the brothel keeper and asked, "Listening to a song costs 1 tael of silver?" The brothel keeper smiled and said, "1 tael of silver is cheap. If young master goes to the music house and orders the ladies, it will be even more expensive." Li Mu didn't talk nonsense with the brothel keeper. He simply took out the money. He knew that this kind of place was expensive, but he didn't expect it to be so expensive. This money must be reimbursed by the government office later. The plump woman came down from upstairs and said, "This young master is really strange. He just listened to a song and slept." The brothel keeper didn't care and said, "There are all kinds of people in this world. It's not strange after seeing many of them." After she said that, she asked a question without rhyme or reason. "You didn't forget, right?" The plump woman nodded and said, "I didn't forget." The brothel keeper said, "That's good. Go outside and get customers." Li Mu walked out of Spring Wind Pavilion. He didn't go to the government office, nor did he go home. First, he walked around for a while to see if anyone was following him. It was difficult for a normal man to go to a brothel to listen to music without arousing suspicion. But this was something that couldn't be helped. Arrestor Zhao's intention was to let him put on a show and be a dedicated undercover agent. He had to make the show real and use real guns and real bullets. Of course, Li Mu couldn't accept it. For a mission, he lost the primordial yang energy that he had saved for 19 years. It was a bloody loss. His primordial yang energy was reserved for Lu Hanyan. On the street of June City, at the door of a tea house, Lu Hanyan looked at the door of Spring Wind Pavilion and asked Zhang Shan, "Did Li Mu just come out from inside?" Zhang Shan quickly shook his head and said, No, I didn't see him. You must have mistaken him for someone else. When Li Mu returned home, Lu Hanyan was sitting in the courtyard with her back to him. Wan Wan stood beside her and kept winking at Li Mu. Lu Hanyan turned to look at him and asked, "Where did you go at noon?" Li Mu said, "I didn't do anything, nothing." Lu Hanyan stood up and looked at him with disappointment. "Wan Wan and I saw you come out of the brothel with our own eyes." Li Mu was startled and explained, Lu Hanyan said sadly, "What about you? Don't tell me that you went to the brothel just to listen to music?" Li Mu was silent for a moment. He looked at her and said helplessly, "If I said that I really just listened to a song, would you believe me?" Lu Hanyan didn't say anything. Li Mu didn't expect that he would be caught red-handed doing a proper job. Times had changed. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have needed to explain to Lu Hanyan. But it was different now. If he didn't explain, the wife he was about to pursue might run away. Li Mu looked pleadingly at the little fox and said, "Xiao Bai, you're the only one who can prove my innocence now." Xiao Bai understood and jumped onto the table. She said to Lu Hanyan, "Big sister Lu, you misunderstood. Nothing really happened with our benefactor." Lu Hanyan said angrily, "You're still speaking up for him at this point." "No, I'm not siding with our benefactor." Xiao Bai leaned close to Lu Hanyan's ear and whispered a few words. Lu Hanyan was stunned for a moment. She said in disbelief, "You can tell?" Xiao Bai nodded and said, "This is the talent of our clan. Our benefactor still has his vitality." Li Mu looked at Lu Hanyan and said, "I swear, I went to the brothel today for an errand. I came back after listening to a song. I didn't even touch those girls." Lu Hanyan already believed him, but she still said stubbornly, "What errand required you to go to the brothel?" Li Mu didn't answer. He just shook his head and said, "You don't trust me. You've disappointed me." He ignored Lu Hanyan and went straight to his room. After a while, Lu Hanyan walked in from outside and whispered, "I was wrong." Li Mu glanced at her. "What was wrong?" Lu Hanyan lowered her head and said, "I shouldn't have mistrusted you." Li Mu snorted and said, "Is one wrong enough?" Lu Hanyan thought for a moment and threw him on the bed. She kissed him lightly on the lips and asked, "I gave you my first kiss. Is that enough?" Li Mu pursed his lips and said, "You can make a few more mistakes next time." "In your dreams?" Lu Hanyan sat up again and asked, "Was this your first kiss too?" Li Mu thought for a moment and nodded. "You're also the first woman I kissed." Chapter 146. Lu Hanyan was the first and only woman Li Mu had ever kissed. Suhi was a ghost, not a human. At that time, Li Mu's life was in danger. He was almost killed by Thousand Illusions' venerable master's soul power. He was in a coma and didn't have time to think about other things. Thinking of Suhi, he didn't know if she had come out of seclusion or if she had received the two ghosts Li Mu had sent her. Lu Hanyan was keenly aware of something and asked Li Mu, "What are you thinking about?" Li Mu quickly came back to his senses and said, "You kissed me too quickly. I wasn't ready yet. Do you want to do it again, in your dreams?" Lu Hanyan left in a hurry with a red face. Li Mu was relieved. Haste makes waste, and Lu Hanyan couldn't eat hot tofu. She took the initiative to kiss Li Mu, which was already a big step forward in their relationship. If Li Mu took an inch and wanted a mile, it would have the opposite effect. Let nature take its course. One day, the two of them would be able to completely give themselves to each other. Being caught by Lu Hanyan in the act of going to the brothel was also good. In the future, he could openly enter Spring Wine Pavilion without worrying about Lu Hanyan being angry. During the day, he only saw that the brothel was using some kind of utensils to absorb the yang energy of the customers. At night, Li Mu went to Spring Wind Pavilion again. As usual, he called a woman to play the zither while he slept on the bed. When the woman saw that Li Mu was sleeping, the zither gradually slowed down and stopped. She glanced at the sleeping Li Mu, picked up the incense burner, and left the room. When she left, she didn't notice that a paper figurine the size of her pinky was stuck to the bottom of her shoe. With the sound of the door closing, Li Mu, who had long since fallen asleep on the bed, slowly opened his eyes. Paper dolls were a secret technique of the Fulu school. Originally, only the disciples of the Fulu school could make them. Li Mu had found the method to make them from the memories of the Thousand Illusions' venerable master. The paper dolls created through the Fulu method could replace the owner to do some things. They could also be used to explore dangerous places. They had a wide range of uses. With the aid of the paper doll, he could hear the voices around the woman. In his ears, other than the sound of gentle footsteps, there were occasional moans of men and women. As the woman walked down the stairs and into the backyard, Li Mu's ears finally quieted down. Spring Wind Pavilion, backyard. The woman carried the incense burner to an ancient well. The brothel keeper of Spring Wind Pavilion was guarding the well. The woman slowly walked over and handed the incense burner to her. The procuress took the incense burner and said, "You stay here and guard. Don't let any outsiders come in." The woman nodded respectfully and stood at the mouth of the well. Not long after, Constable Zhao came in from outside. He walked in front of Li Mu and asked, "How's the investigation?" Li Mu nodded and said, "After more than half a month of secret investigation, I found that behind Spring Wind Pavilion, there is indeed a ghost general under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon controlling it. Her hiding place is in the well in the backyard of Spring Wind Pavilion." Constable Zhao said, "The ghost Qi is hidden in the well. No wonder you can't see anything strange from the outside." Li Mu continued, "The procuress and prostitutes of Spring Wind Pavilion should have been bewitched by her long ago. They secretly absorbed the yang qi of the guests for her to cultivate. Demonic ghosts could not only eat people, but they were also good at bewitching people. Those who were bewitched by them would completely become their slaves, unable to have the slightest disloyalty." Constable Zhao asked, "Why did this ghost take the risk to cause trouble in the county capital? Did you find the reason?" "I found it." Li Mu nodded and said, "The 18 ghost generals under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon are not fixed. As long as the ghost soldiers under him are strong enough, they can replace their positions at any time. Not only that, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon also set a cruel rule for the 18 ghost generals." Constable Zhao asked, "What rule?" Li Mu continued, "Within a certain period of time, the last ghost general who has not reached the spirit realm will be used as a sacrifice. His spirit will be erased and his soul will be sacrificed. In the backyard of Spring Wind Pavilion, the female ghost under the well has the strength of a peak evil spirit, almost reaching the spirit realm. She absorbs the yang qi of these people in order to advance. If she succeeds in advancing to the spirit realm, she will not have to worry about being sacrificed. Although the strength of a peak evil spirit ranked at the bottom of the 18 ghost generals under Chu Jiang of Gojoseon, it was not the last. The culprit who made the female ghost so nervous was actually Li Mu. Before he killed the ghost general was ranked last among the 18 ghost generals. After he killed the ghost general, the female ghost became the last. If she didn't work hard, her intelligence would be erased and she would become someone else's nourishment. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon could think of such a way to motivate his employees. He was a genius. Constable Zhao asked, "Did you find out the secret of Chu Jiang of Gojoseon?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "If Chu Jiang of Gojoseon really has a secret, I'm afraid it's not something a low-level ghost general can know." "That's true." Constable Zhao nodded and said, "Continue to investigate first. Once you have any news, immediately report to the county government." Li Mu had a troubled look on his face. Constable Zhao asked, "What's the problem?" Li Mu said, "The expenses at Spring Wind Pavilion are too expensive. From start to finish, I have already spent more than 10 taels of silver. I can't keep paying like this. How about the Yamen give me some in advance?" Constable Zhao said in surprise. "Didn't they say that you hooked up with a rich woman, lived in a big house, and wore clothes of the best quality?" Li Mu froze for a moment and said angrily, "Who leaked? Who spread the rumor?" Constable Zhao smiled and said, "I only heard about it. The Yamen should pay for these taels of silver. I'll go to the treasury later to get it for you." Constable Zhao left the guard room and quickly came back. He gave Li Mu 30 taels of silver and said, "Take these 30 taels of silver first. If it's not enough, come to the yamen to get more." Li Mu took the taels of silver and thought that he could be extravagant today. He could order 2 girls, one to play the zither, one to play the flute, and one to play the zither and flute. Anyway, the yamen would reimburse him. If he exceeded the budget, he could apply again. After Constable Zhao finished speaking, he took out another item and handed it to Li Mu. He said, "The female ghost at the peak of the evil spirit realm is not to be underestimated. If things change, you might have to confront her directly. Take this magic weapon and return it when you're done." Li Mu looked down at the item in his hand. It looked like a soft branch, light as if it was weightless. He looked at Constable Zhao and asked, "What is this?" Constable Zhao explained, "This item is called the soul-beating whip. It's made from a 1,000-year-old willow branch and can cause great damage to souls and primordial spirits. With one whip, an ordinary spirit or resentful spirit will die and scatter. Even if it's an evil spirit, it won't feel good if it gets whipped. As long as you use this whip to delay the female ghost for a moment and send a message in time, the yamen's reinforcements will arrive immediately." Li Mu's eyes lit up. The whip's restraint on souls was even stronger than his Bai sword. After using it, he had to figure out a way to get it. It would be a good idea to give it to Wan Wan for self-defense. Constable Zhao saw the light in his eyes and coughed softly. He said, "This is something from the yamen. I'm only lending it to you temporarily. You have to return it when you're done with it." Li Mu smiled and said, I understand. He put away the soul-beating whip and thought for a moment. He asked again, "If something from the yamen is broken or lost in the process of carrying out a task, do I have to pay for it?" Chapter 147. If he could get a free meal, Li Mu certainly wouldn't want to waste the opportunity to choose a reward. Unfortunately, Constable Zhao mercilessly told him that if something was lost or broken, he would have to pay for it. The value of each magic weapon couldn't be measured by the money of the secular world. If it had to be converted into silver, it would be at least 1,000 taels of silver. Although Lu Hanyan didn't lack this 1,000 taels of silver, she certainly wouldn't allow Li Mu to be so prodigal. Li Mu temporarily dispelled the idea of stealing this magic weapon. He put away the soul-beating whip. As long as he didn't activate it, no aura would leak out, and he wasn't afraid of being sensed by the evil spirit. Spring Wind Pavilion. When Li Mu walked in again, the brothel keeper greeted him and said with familiarity, "Oh, young master, are you going to order some more chow chow this time?" Li Mu had just received the special funds from the yamen, so he generously said, "I'll order 2 this time. You can arrange it as you see fit." The brothel keeper said, "If it's 2, you'll have to pay more. In any case, the money would have to be returned." One more person meant one more person. Li Mu waved his hand and said, "Fine, I'll pay more. Do I look like someone who can't afford to pay more?" "Of course not." The brothel keeper's face was full of smiles. She beckoned the 2 women and said, "Hua Huan, you 2 accompany the young master." After entering the room, Li Mu had one woman play the zither and the other massage his legs. After a while, he had them switch places. The woman who was massaging his legs went to play the zither and the woman who was playing the zither massaged his legs. In this way, he could evenly and continuously absorb the lust of the 2. It had to be said that this body was simply a sharp tool to harvest lust. He could cultivate by lying down every day. Li Mu closed his eyes as if he was enjoying himself, but his mind had already followed the brothel keeper to the bottom of the well. The silver he had just given to the brothel keeper had already been tampered with by him. There was a paper man at the bottom of the silver and a layer of silver powder. As long as the silver powder wasn't deliberately scraped off, the paper man wouldn't be found. The procuress carried the money with her. This time, Li Mu heard the voice very clearly through the paper figurine. Spring Wind Pavilion's backyard, under the well. This well was dry and devoid of water, but there was another space. In a small space under the well, there were tables, chairs, and cabinets. Nothing was lacking. A red-clothed woman was lazily lying on a bed. On the cabinet in front of the bed, there were several incense burners. The red-clothed woman gently took a deep breath. White smoke rose from the incense burners and was slowly sucked into her nose. After inhaling the smoke, a satisfied look appeared on her face. It would take time for the Jade Token to send a message and for reinforcements to arrive. During this time, Lustful Man would have absorbed many people. Li Mu didn't have time to hesitate. He pushed the door open and went downstairs. He walked down the stairs and saw a woman in red walking out of the backyard with the procuress. The woman in red had an ordinary face. She looked like an ordinary woman, but Li Mu felt that she was very dangerous. Li Mu's mind raced. In the next moment, he walked in front of the procuress and said, "I've been here so many times. Today, I don't want to listen to music. I want to eat meat." The procuress naturally knew what it meant to eat meat. She smiled and said, "Young master, who do you like? I'll arrange it for you." Li Mu pointed at the woman in red and said, "I want her." The procuress's expression changed and she laughed dryly. This won't do." Li Mu threw over an ingot of silver and said, "Why not? Do you have money that you don't want to earn here?" The old woman was about to speak when the woman in red took the silver and said with a smile, "As long as you don't mind me being old, I'm willing to accompany you for a while." The procuress's lips moved, but she didn't dare to say anything. Li Mu smiled at the woman in red and said, "Let's go." Seeing the two of them go up the stairs one after another, the procuress shook her head and said, "He's so handsome." "What a pity," she sighed and said to a woman beside her, "Let everyone stand outside. Today we'll attract more guests." On the second floor, Li Mu led the woman in red in and turned to close the door. In order to prevent this female ghost from killing others, he could only take the risk. However, wealth came from danger. This female ghost wanted to suck Li Mu's yang qi, and Li Mu also wanted to suck her lust. That green snake made Li Mu want to eat it. He had long wanted to find a more powerful demon ghost to harvest. This woman was only one step away from the soul realm. If he sucked her lust, and coupled with the gains from Li Mu's brothel during this period of time, it should be enough for him to condense the seventh soul. In this way, among the 7 souls, he only lacked the 5th soul. Fei Du, the woman in red, walked to the bed and leaned against it. She said, "Young master, you have to take pity on me." Li Mu walked to the bed and pretended to untie his belt. The woman in red sucked gently, and the yang qi in Li Mu's body dissipated and was sucked into her body. She coveted Li Mu's yang qi, so she would definitely have desire for Li Mu. Li Mu took a deep breath. The strong power of lust made him intoxicated. In order to make her more lust, Li Mu controlled the yang qi and poured it out of his body. He had already refined the 5 souls and had a pure yang body. The yang qi in his body was very abundant. This loss was nothing. The woman in red had a strange look in her eyes. The yang qi of the person in front of her was completely different from the yang qi of those men. Not only was it endless, but it also played a far better role in her cultivation than ordinary men. A greedy look appeared on her face as she increased the speed of her absorption. Li Mu's belt was still not untied. The speed of his absorption increased as well. Suddenly, a suspicious look appeared on the woman in red's face. After absorbing so much yang qi, not only did she not feel excited, she even felt a little weak. Li Mu had absorbed enough of the lust. Seeing that the ghost was suspicious, he raised his hand without hesitation and flung out a whip shadow from his sleeve, lashing the woman in red. The woman in red could not dodge at all and was instantly whipped. Sizzle! When the soul-striking whip struck her, a black mark appeared on her body. Wisps of ghostly qi spread out from the mark. "You're a cultivator." The woman in red's face was filled with anger. After coming to her senses, she stabbed her 2 ghostly claws at Li Mu's body. Li Mu was already prepared. As he retreated quickly, he lashed out with his whip again. Another black mark appeared on the woman's hand. Her face was extremely ferocious. She let out an angry roar and no longer bothered with Li Mu. She turned into a cloud of black mist and broke out of the window. She had actually escaped. Li Mu walked to the window and sensed a powerful aura. It was chasing after Lei Feng. Since the county governor had already made his move, Li Mu did not need to chase after her. He walked to the door and knocked out the procuress who had heard the commotion in the room and was about to come in to check. Many constables rushed in from the door and subdued all the brothel girls who did not know what had happened. Constable Zhao walked in and said, "The county governor has personally chased after her. She can't escape. Why did you suddenly clash with her? Did she find out?" Li Mu shook his head and said, "In 3 days, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon will gather all the ghost generals. The woman in red does not want to be sacrificed and is prepared to risk everything. She will kill everyone in the brothel and suck their yang qi and blood. I had no choice but to lure her into the room and send you a message at the same time." Constable Zhao patted him on the shoulder and said, "Well done. When we return to the county office, you will be rewarded. Can you return the soul-striking whip first?" You so-called government officials who make decisions for the people are just a group of people who bully the weak and fear the strong. Li Mu sneered and said, "You suck people's yang qi and want to kill them. What kind of good is that?" Madame Chu's soul had dissipated to the extreme. She didn't answer Li Mu and used the last of her strength to shout, "Cui Ming, you'll die a horrible death." She closed her eyes and her soul was about to dissipate. The next moment, a golden light entered her body and made her soul more solid. Li Mu looked down at her and asked, "Who did you just say?" Commandery Captain Shin said, "I have already handed her over to you. You can decide whether to kill or keep her." Li Mu actually did not know how to deal with her. Madame Chu did not kill anyone and did not cause any serious consequences. According to the law, she did not deserve to be killed. However, she had bewitched the people and sucked their yang qi. He could not let her go just like that. Madame Chu looked at Bai, who was hanging from Li Mu's waist. Determination suddenly appeared in her eyes. She said, "If Cui Ming doesn't die, I won't be able to rest in peace. I am willing to become the spirit of your sword and serve you." Spirit bodies and soul bodies could be attached to magic treasures to increase their power. Some high-level cultivators would capture the souls of powerful demons and ghosts and forcibly refine them into magic treasures to increase their power. Li Mu had never thought of doing this before. After all, no one was willing to be refined into a magic treasure. If the sword existed, the spirit would exist. If the sword died, the spirit would die. Most magic treasure spirits were forced. Madame Chu was willing to become a sword spirit. She was not forced. If there was a spirit sword spirit in Bai, she would be able to control Bai herself. This would be much more flexible than Li Mu controlling the sword himself. It would be equivalent to having a middle realm helper when facing an enemy. Not only that, her greatest use was to lend her mana to Li Mu at critical moments. As long as he held Bai, his mana could reach the 4th realm in a short period of time. Even if Madame Chu's mana was not as good as Suhi's, Li Mu could easily kill a 4th realm Abhijina. He could fight against a 5th realm Abhijina and a 6th realm Dongxian. Even if he could not win, he could at least protect himself. Li Mu could not resist such a temptation. He looked at Madame Chu and asked, "Have you thought it through?" Madame Chu's expression was resolute. She said, "With my strength alone, I will never be able to take revenge in this lifetime. I only hope that one day, I can see that villain Cui Ming die under this sword with my own eyes." Bai had already been recognized as Li Mu's master. As a sword spirit, she would also become Li Mu's servant. Madame Chu's only obsession was to seek revenge on Cui Ming. As for Suhi's revenge, Li Mu would definitely avenge her. Cui Ming was heartless and deserved to die. Whether it was for personal or public reasons, Li Mu could not let him go. He pulled Bai out and said, "Come in yourself." Madame Chu's soul turned into a puff of smoke and merged into Bai. Li Mu used the sword to cut his fingertip and drew a rune on the sword with his blood. He formed a seal with one hand and released a stream of spiritual energy. The blood rune on the sword was instantly absorbed into the sword. After doing all this, Li Mu closed the scabbard and said, "You stay inside first. I will help you heal later." Commandant Shen looked at him and said, "In the case of Spring Wind Pavilion, you hid for half a month and saved countless lives. Your contribution is the greatest. You can choose 2 items from the Xian room. Let Constable Zhao take you there." Li Mu had been waiting for this moment for a long time. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Commandant Shen." After a while, Constable Zhao took Li Mu to the 2nd floor of the treasure pavilion. He sighed and said, "You've only been here for a month and you've already entered the treasure pavilion twice. Most of the constables here can't even enter once a year. However, I've never seen a constable as reckless as you. You've only just reached the soul condensation realm and you dare to fight a 3rd realm demonic ghost." When they reached the 2nd floor, Constable Zhao said, "I won't introduce the items here to you. You can see for yourself. You have 15 minutes. Remember to choose what you want in 15 minutes. Li Mu wanted the soul-beating whip. When using this whip to fight enemies, 3 souls would leave the body with 1 strike and the 2nd strike would dissipate the soul. Wan's spiritual eyes could control souls, so it was perfect for her. He looked at Constable Zhao and said, "Can I choose the soul-beating whip?" Constable Zhao looked at him and said, "Why are you still thinking about the Yaman's items?" Li Mu smiled and said, "Among these items, I only want the soul-beating whip." He was afraid that if he didn't give it to him this time, he would keep thinking about it in the future. Constable Zhao finally said helplessly, "That's not for me to decide. I'll help you ask the county lieutenant." Constable Zhao left the treasure pavilion and quickly returned. He said, "The county lieutenant has agreed. You can take the soul-beating whip, but you can only choose the soul-beating whip. If you give up the soul-beating whip, you can choose 2 items. As for which one to choose, you can think about it yourself." Li Mu said without hesitation, "I choose the soul-beating whip." Constable Zhao took out the soul-beating whip from his sleeve and handed it to him. He said, "You're very lucky. 2 of the Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's ghost generals were killed by you. That's why the county lieutenant made an exception for you. Continue to work hard. Perhaps in 2 years, you'll be on equal footing with me." Li Mu put away the soul-beating whip and said with a smile, "I just want to do something for the people. I've never thought about these things." Constable Zhao waved his hand and said, "Let's go." Li Mu looked around and said, "It's not worth it to exchange 2 for 1. Can I exchange a few more spiritual jades?" On the way home, Li Mu weighed the heavy spiritual jades in his sleeve and calculated his harvest this time. The Yaman had given him 30 taels of silver as a special fund. There were about a dozen taels left. Constable Zhao didn't ask, and Li Mu didn't mention it either. Chapter 150. Li Mu hugged Lu Hanyan and comforted her, "Don't be afraid. She's the sword spirit I just accepted." Lu Hanyan finally realized something. She pushed Li Mu away and said angrily, "Are you doing this on purpose? I just want you to get to know each other. This is Mrs. Chu, Bai's sword spirit." Li Mu introduced her to Lu Hanyan, then looked at Mrs. Chu and said, "This is Lu Hanyan. You can call her Lady Lu." Mrs. Chu bowed to Lu Hanyan and said, "Greetings, mistress." Lu Hanyan said, "Who's your mistress?" Li Mu took her hand and said, "Not now, but sooner or later you will be." He took out a piece of spiritual jade from his sleeve and handed it to her, saying, "This is for you." Lu Hanyan's attention was temporarily diverted. She asked, "What is this?" Li Mu said, "It's a spiritual jade. It contains spiritual power and can be directly guided out for cultivation. Take it first. There are a few more pieces. I'll give them to Wan and Xiaobai." Li Mu put Mrs. Chu back into the sword and left with an excuse from Lu Hanyan. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and let out a long breath. Li Si was right. The devil was often hidden in the details. He still had a lot to learn from Li Si. If he had the chance to go to a brothel next time, he would definitely choose the sexy and beautiful first. He gave the soul-striking whip to Wanwan. Seeing the cute girl holding the whip, Li Mu felt that something was wrong. It seemed that Lu Hanyan was more suitable. However, he thought that if he gave the soul-striking whip to Lu Hanyan, she would probably have more chances to whip him in the future. It was safer to give it to Wanwan. After all, although Lu Hanyan had many advantages, she could never compare with Wanwan in terms of being well-behaved, obedient, and not being jealous. Of the 7 spirit jades, 1 was given to Lu Hanyan to taste, 3 were given to Wanwan, and 3 were given to Little White. Li Mu and Lu Hanyan both had physiques that could easily absorb spiritual energy, and they were also dual cultivating every night. In fact, there wasn't much of a difference whether they had spiritual jades or not. For Xiaobai and Wanwan, the spiritual energy contained in a spiritual jade was at least equivalent to a month of their cultivation. Wanwan was more playful. Every day, she would think more about what to eat in the morning, what to eat in the afternoon, what to eat in the evening, and what to eat in the middle of the night when she was hungry. Xiaobai was very hardworking in her cultivation. Every day after dinner, she would stay in Li Mu's room for a while until Lu Hanyan came over before leaving. For the rest of the time, she would cultivate in her small room. Her entire clan had died tragically at the hands of human cultivators. For a heavenly fox, this was a blood feud that she had to avenge. Li Mu had asked her who the cultivator who killed her clan was, but Xiaobai couldn't say. It was even more difficult for him to obtain such great love. However, there was only 1 soul left in the 7 souls. Whether it was condensed or not, it didn't matter much. Mortals could still survive after losing 1 soul. He was a cultivator. The impact of losing 1 soul on his body was minimal. However, Li Mu still yearned for the 7 souls to be complete. Lu Hanyan didn't come over at night. Li Mu was too lazy to cultivate alone. He planned to completely relax and sleep. At this moment he felt a strong call from Bai Sword. Bai Sword had long been refined by Li Mu and was connected to his mind. Li Mu quickly realized that it was Mrs. Chu, who had turned into a sword spirit, calling him. Li Mu stretched out his hand and Bai Sword flew into his hand. He took out the scabbard. After a burst of fog, Mrs. Chu's figure appeared again. At this moment, there was no longer any ghost chi or resentment on her body. Standing in front of Li Mu, she looked like an ordinary weak woman. Other than Mrs. Chu, the only female ghost that could give Li Mu such a feeling was Su He. This meant that she had officially stepped into the soul realm and become a ghost cultivator in the middle realm. However, Mrs. Chu had just stepped into the middle realm. When Li Mu first met Su He, she had already been in the 4th realm for a long time. She was much stronger than the current Mrs. Chu. Li Mu looked at her and said, "Congratulations on successfully entering the soul realm." Mrs. Chu said gratefully, "If it weren't for Master, my soul would have dissipated long ago." A 4th realm ghost cultivator was already considered an expert. It was rare to see one. Chu Jiang of Gojoseon had more than 10 of them under his command. If the county government hadn't noticed, Mrs. Chu would have become his 17th soul realm ghost general. Li Mu asked, "Does Chu Jiang of Gojoseon really have any ulterior motives in the North County all these years?" Mrs. Chu shook her head and said, "I don't know. I only know that Chu Jiang of Gojoseon has been searching for and nurturing soul realm ghost cultivators. Many of his ghost generals used to be wandering ghosts. After they were taken in by him, if they couldn't advance to the soul realm within the time he set, they would have to sacrifice their soul power to other ghost generals. A peak 5th realm Chu Jiang of Gojoseon and more than 10 4th realm ghost generals could already be considered an extremely huge force. If it weren't for the ancestral court of Fu Lu School, Chu Jiang of Gojoseon's power would only be higher than the North County's officials. Although the ancestral court of Fu Lu School was powerful, other than sending low-level disciples to cultivate in the secular world, it wouldn't interfere too much in the secular world. Unless it was a giant of the demonic path like Master Qianhuan, who exceeded the North County's ability to deal with, it would attract the super experts of the Fu Lu School. Chapter 151. Li Mu thought that his cultivation speed was already fast enough, but when he saw Li Si again, he found that his 7 souls had all been refined. There was no difficulty in refining the soul and condensing the soul. As long as one had enough courage and soul power, it was not difficult to cross 2 realms in half a month. However, this required a large amount of resources. For an ordinary person without any background to collect these resources, it was much more difficult than cultivating step by step. However, Li Mu did not envy him. While Li Si's cultivation was rapidly increasing, the weight on his body was not light. There was no free lunch in the world. If one wanted to gain something, they had to lose something else. He gained money, power, and women, but lost his freedom. However, Li Si did not seem to care about this. Li Mu often saw him and Chen Miao Miao appearing together. The smile on his face was much more than before, as if he was a different person. It seemed that he had really found his love. Speaking of love, Li Mu was a little confused. Of the 7 emotions, the only one he lacked was love. However, he had never felt this kind of feeling from anyone until now. Even Lu Hanyan was no exception. Li Mu even suspected that she did not actually like him, but simply lusted after his body. He could not figure out this question and planned to ask Li Si. What is love? Li Si leaned back in his chair and shook his head at Li Mu. This question is very profound and there is more than one answer. You need to discover it yourself. Li Mu asked, is it not love when 2 people who like each other are together? Li Si patted his shoulder and said meaningfully, like is like, love is love. Like is possession. Love is giving. Like is unbridled and willful. Love is restraint and tolerance. After you and Lady Lu get married and spend a few years together, you will naturally understand. Li Mu understood Li Si's meaning. At first sight, there is liking, but after a long time, there will be love. If Lu Hanyan wasn't so beautiful, didn't have such a great figure, wasn't the shopkeeper of the Yunyan Pavilion, didn't have a pure in body, and wasn't so multi-talented, Li Mu would still like her. Then it would be true love. Right now, the relationship between the 2 of them was merely liking each other. Love would only develop after a long period of time. Love wasn't something that could be created overnight. He still needed to cultivate feelings with her. With nothing to do in the yamen, Li Mu used the excuse of patrolling to go to Yunyan Pavilion. There were only 2 branches of the Yunyan Pavilion in the county city. One was a bookstore, and the other was a tea house where storytelling was the main business. With the help of the Su family, the 2 branches opened smoothly without any obstacles. Although business was temporarily slow, the bookstore would soon become popular with a few best-selling books such as Strange Stories from a Strange Story and Confucius Does Not Speak in Yangqiu County. On the other hand, business in the tea house was very average. Without good stories and a storyteller with great storytelling skills, very few people would specially come here to drink tea. Li Mu went to the bookstore first. Zhang Shan told him that Lu Hanyan was in the tea house. Li Mu walked into the tea house and saw that there were only a few guests sitting in the tea house. The storyteller on the stage wasn't in a very good mood. Lu Hanyan sat in a corner, frowning in deep thought. Li Mu walked over and sat beside her. Lu Hanyan instinctively moved to the side. When she turned her head and saw that it was Li Mu, she moved her butt back. The tea house was very quiet. She asked in a small voice, "Why are you here?" Li Mu held her hand and said, "I missed you." Lu Hanyan's face was glowing. She allowed Li Mu to hold her hand. She looked at the storyteller on the stage and said, "Business in the prefecture capital is really difficult. The tea house is losing money every day. Very few of the guests who came to the tea house actually came to drink tea. Most of them came to listen to some novel stories to pass the time." Before the Yunyan Pavilion moved in, the market of the tea houses in the prefecture capital had already been divided up by a few families. It was not easy to snatch a fixed source of customers from them. Li Mu smiled and said, "At the crucial moment, you still have to rely on me, right?" In Yangqiu County, if it weren't for Li Mu, the Yunyan Pavilion wouldn't have been so popular. The guests in the tea house were also exchanged for by Li Mu using one unusual story after another, One exciting chapter after another, risking his life. Others thought that he had hooked up with Lu Hanyan, but few people knew that he was the man behind Lu Hanyan. Lu Hanyan gently pinched his waist and said, "You're still making sarcastic remarks. Hurry up and think of a solution. If this goes on, the tea house will close. When that time comes, I won't be able to support you." In the tea house, the few guests were somewhat dispirited. In this newly opened tea house, the taste of the tea was acceptable, but the storyteller's story was dull. Two people finished their tea and directly left. When the others were about to finish their tea and leave, they saw the storyteller on the stage walk down. A waiter carried a screen onto the stage. Not long after, a young voice began to speak from behind the screen. "A water ghost, a young man, an old man who grows grapes. Seems a little interesting." The young man's story was quite interesting. A guest had already stood up and was about to leave. After standing and listening for a while, he sat down again and poured a pot of tea. When he was telling the story on the stage, there was a sudden burst of thunder outside, and it started to rain heavily. At this moment, the rain was much lighter. Under the eaves of the shops on the street, there were pedestrians taking shelter from the rain. There were also passers-by who did not have time to escape and were completely drenched, cursing as they walked on the street. In the corner of the roof of the tea house, there were two figures curled up. One was a skinny old man, and the other was a 17 or 18-year-old girl. Both of them were dressed in rags, and the girl was holding a broken bowl in her hand. They should be beggars who were temporarily taking shelter from the rain. It seemed that they disliked them for being too dirty, and the passers-by who were taking shelter from the rain were not willing to get too close to them. Li Mu took out a piece of broken silver and put it in the bowl. The two hurriedly thanked him. 2 days ago, the weather had turned cold, and the two were drenched in the rain. Li Mu saw them curled up in the corner, shivering. He walked in again, took a pot of hot tea and 2 bowls, and handed them to them. He said, "Drink a cup of tea to warm up. It's free." The girl was stunned. She had been hiding outside and eavesdropping, and the kind man in front of her had the same voice as the storyteller. She quickly reacted and knelt down to kowtow to him. She said, "Thank you, benefactor." "Thank you, benefactor." Li Mu waved his hand, held up the umbrella, and walked to the county government. Several patrolling constables walked into the government office awkwardly and muttered, "Why did it rain so suddenly?" There was no sign at all. Outside the county city, several women who were washing clothes by the stream were suddenly drenched by the heavy rain. Their clothes became translucent, faintly revealing their bloated figures. A shabby Taoist priest in rags was among them. He was talking and laughing with them, and his eyes were looking around. The women did not avoid him. From time to time, they would pull their clothes and tease him. The old Taoist priest looked at it for a while and felt bored. It was still raining. He looked up at the gloomy sky, counted with his fingers, and said in surprise, "My dear mother, this rain is not right." Chapter 152. It shouldn't be raining today. This rain actually contains the power of heaven and earth. Who caused it? Damn it, this North County is really full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Looks like I'll have to stay here for a few more days to observe. Lao Dao pinched the sky and muttered to himself. A woman said, "Old pervert, what are you muttering about?" Lao Dao collected his thoughts and smiled. "Are you going to buy the talisman I mentioned just now? It's very effective. Everyone who's used it says it's good." Li Mu walked into the county office. Not long after, Constable Zhao came to the office. "There's something wrong with this rain." He wiped the rainwater off his face and said, "The county governor said that it shouldn't be raining these few days. Something must have happened." Li Mu asked suspiciously, "What kind of matter can affect the heavens and rain?" Constable Zhao said, "There are many. Cultivators who condense their spirits can summon the wind and fog. Cultivators who condense their spirits can even pray for the sun and rain. Every time a new Dao technique or abhijna is born, there will be a heavenly vision." Li Mu was shocked. Only then did he realize a problem. The heaven and earth of this world was not the sky and earth that he saw. A cultivator's Tao oath was made to heaven and earth. If they violated it, they would be punished by heaven. In other words, heaven was watching what people did. Just now, he used Do-Yi's story to scold the heaven and earth for bullying the weak and fearing the strong. It couldn't be that this rain was because of this, right? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. It seemed that the time when the rain was the heaviest was when he talked about Do-Yi's vow. Li Mu immediately made up his mind. That line had to be changed. It was enough to scold the corrupt officials. It was best not to involve heaven and earth in everything. If heaven was unhappy with him and struck down lightning, it would be too late for him to regret. Fortunately, the rain didn't last long. Within a quarter of an hour after Li Mu returned to the county yamen, the sky cleared up again. The sky was blue and there wasn't even a cloud in sight. If it weren't for the wet puddles on the ground, no one would have thought that it had just rained. When Constable Zhao left the watchroom, he instructed Li Mu, "You stay here and don't leave the yamen. In a while, everyone will follow the county governor to pay respects to the national temple." Every county in the Great Zhou dynasty had a state temple. Li Mu had been to Yangqiu County once, but the state temple in Yangqiu County could not be compared to the one in the county capital. This was a large hall that occupied a large area. Although it only had one floor, it was at least 30 feet tall. The first thing that came into sight when they walked into the national temple were 3 towering statues. The moment they stepped into the national temple, they would have the urge to kneel down and worship them. There were hundreds of prayer mats in the hall, and the people of the North County were kneeling on them. The people lined up and walked in from the entrance. After paying their respects, they walked out from the exit. Li Mu noticed that almost 90% of the people would produce a bit of psychokinesis in their bodies when they paid their respects to the 3 statues. The psychokinesis would be absorbed by the 3 statues. The national temple was similar to temples and Taoist temples. As long as people paid their respects sincerely, psychokinesis would be produced. Those who didn't produce psychokinesis would definitely be dissatisfied with the imperial court or the local government. This was unavoidable. Even the national temple couldn't force the people to worship it. To a certain extent, the proportion of people who produced psychokinesis represented the people's sentiment in the imperial court. When the people of an area paid their respects to the national temple, the proportion of people who produced psychokinesis was an important indicator to assess the achievements of the local officials. If the law and order of a place was good and the people lived and worked in peace, they would naturally have confidence in the imperial court. However, if the local officials were merciless and treated the people badly, causing them to complain and living in poverty, they wouldn't produce much psychokinesis. The people of the county government paid their respects to the national temple firstly to pay their respects and secondly to observe the people's sentiment. From the situation at the scene, only a small number of people didn't produce psychokinesis. This also meant that the people trusted the North County government very much. Li Mu looked at the 3 statues in the hall and asked, "Who are these 3 people?" Constable Zhao looked at him and asked, "Have you never been here before?" Li Mu shook his head. "No." Constable Zhao said in surprise, "Even if you haven't been here before, you should have seen the portraits of Emperor Taizu, Wu Zong, and Emperor Wen, right?" After Constable Zhao's reminder, Li Mu finally found information about the 3 statues in his mind. Emperor Taizu was the founding emperor of the Great Zhou dynasty. He conquered the territory of the Great Zhou dynasty and divided it into 36 counties. During Emperor Wu Zong's reign, he used iron and blood to sweep away the turmoil in the country and intimidate the neighboring countries so that they didn't dare to invade. After Wu Zong's reign, the power of the Great Zhou dynasty grew rapidly and deterred everyone. The last Emperor Wen, who ruled for 50 years, worked hard to govern the country. He purged the imperial court, and the people of the 36 counties of the Great Zhou dynasty were at peace. His famous rule of Emperor Wen had been influential to this day. These 3 were all emperors with outstanding contributions in the history of the Great Zhou dynasty. They were qualified to have their statues erected in the national temple and receive the worship of the people of the great Zhou dynasty. A constable looked at the statues of the three emperors and couldn't help but feel admiration. Then, a trace of unwillingness appeared on his face and he said in a low voice, "Emperor Taizu, Wu Zong, Emperor Wen, what kind of heroes are they? The Shao dynasty has lasted for hundreds of years, but in the end, it was stolen by a woman with a different surname. Shut up." Constable Zhao slapped him hard on the head and said, "You dare to say anything? If you want to die, don't drag us down with you." Li Mu raised his head and looked at the statues of the three emperors. He didn't feel anything special in his heart. The current empress was the first empress since the establishment of the great Zhou dynasty. In the hearts of the people of the great Zhou dynasty, this was tantamount to going against the moral principles. It was still unacceptable to them. However, to Li Mu, it was not unprecedented for a woman to be an empress. It was also not something that was unacceptable. He followed the prefectural governor and paid his respects to the statues of the three emperors in a not-so-sincere manner. After returning to the yamen, he learned about the new task from Constable Zhao. In the process of paying their respects to the national temple, the people in a certain area did not have any psychokinesis. After investigating, the yamen found that these people were all from Yang County. They learned from these people that a plague had broken out in a few villages in Yang County. However, the Yang County government did nothing and allowed the plague to spread, causing the people of Yang County to panic. Yang County and Yu County happened to be the two counties that Constable Zhao was in charge of. Early the next morning, he would bring a few people to Yang County to investigate the situation. Li Mu would also go with them. Although Yang County was not far from the prefectural capital, considering that it would take time to complete the task, they might not be able to make it back by tomorrow night. During dinner, Li Mu told Yu Han-yun about the business trip tomorrow. After dinner, she helped Li Mu pack a small bag and said, "I don't know how long it will take for you to come back. I've packed 2 sets of clothes for you to change into. When the time comes, just bring back the dirty clothes you changed into. Be careful outside." Li Mu was not worried about his own safety at all. With Bai Yi in hand, unless King Chujiang personally came, normal demonic ghosts and heretical cultivation would not pose much of a threat to him. However, he was still worried about them. Chapter 153. Li Mu looked at the unfamiliar girl on the bed and then looked at Lu Hanyan, who was standing at the door with tears in her eyes. His lips moved as he wanted to explain, but he didn't know what to say. He had been caught red-handed in bed. What else could he explain? Although even Li Mu himself didn't know why this young girl would appear on his bed, he didn't know. Lu Hanyan didn't say anything. She wiped her tears and turned to run away. Chasing after his future wife was more important. Li Mu didn't care about what was going on with the girl on the bed. He quickly chased after her without even wearing shoes. As soon as Lu Hanyan ran into the yard, Li Mu caught up with her and hugged her from behind. Li Mu hugged her tightly and hurriedly said, "Don't be angry. Let me explain." Lu Hanyan didn't struggle. 2 streams of tears flowed down her cheeks. She choked and said, "I saw it with my own eyes. What else do you have to explain? Isn't it enough for you to do whatever you want outside? You actually brought her home," Li Mu said with a wry smile. "I don't know who she is. I saw her when I opened my eyes this morning. Do you believe what you're saying?" Li Mu didn't know how to explain. Suddenly, a vague voice came from behind him. The girl walked out of the room naked and barefoot. She rubbed her sleepy eyes and looked at Li Mu and Lu Hanyan. She asked in confusion, "Benefactor, Sister Lu, what are you doing?" Hearing this extremely familiar voice, Li Mu turned around and was stunned. He said in surprise, "Xiao Bai?" The next moment, his vision went black. Lu Hanyan had covered his eyes from behind. Lu Hanyan's face turned red. She said angrily, "Xiao Bai, quickly go into the room." The girl looked at her and asked in confusion, "Why?" Lu Hanyan said with a red face, "Look down." The girl lowered her head to take a look. After a brief moment of shock, She let out a cry of surprise and her figure instantly disappeared on the spot. A moment later, Li Mu and Lu Hanyan stood in the room, looking at the girl who had wrapped herself in a blanket. They murmured, how did you transform? I don't know either. The girl's face was bright red as she said, Last night, I just wanted to give it a try and then fell asleep. When I woke up I became like this. Li Mu looked at Lu Hanyan and said, Do you believe me this time? Lu Hanyan was a little ashamed and said, I'll help her find some clothes. After Xiaobai transformed, although she wasn't as tall as Li Qing, she was still half a head taller than Wanwan. Wanwan's clothes didn't fit her, so she could only make do with Lu Hanyan's clothes. In Lu Hanyan's room, she stood behind Xiaobai, helping her comb her hair while looking at the girl's face in the bronze mirror. Even though she was very confident in her appearance, when she saw the girl in front of her, she couldn't help but feel ashamed. The girl in front of her was really the most beautiful girl she had ever seen. Even as a girl, when she saw her naked body, her heart couldn't help but beat faster. Lil. Her lips moved. She suddenly realized that when she was a little fox in the past, she didn't feel anything when he called her Lil White. But now, when he called her Lil White again, he felt a little weird. She secretly looked at her again and asked, Xiaobai, what's your name? We can't keep calling you Xiaobai in the future, right? The girl smiled and said, My surname is Su. Big sister Lu can just call me Xiaobai in the future. Lu Hanyan helped her comb her hair and couldn't help but say, Xiaobai is really beautiful. Xiaobai said shyly, Big sister Lu is the beautiful one. Li Mu stood at the door and said, You guys stay at home. I'm leaving. Even though Xiaobai's transformation was a happy event, Li Mu was going to Yang County today. He couldn't let Constable Zhao and the others wait for him. Lu Hanyan put down the comb and said, Xiaobai, sit for a while and stay at home. I'll send him out. Xiaobai nodded obediently. Li Mu walked into the courtyard and said, It's only a few steps from here to the yamen. You don't have to send me off. Lu Hanyan walked over and helped him tidy up his collar. She asked, Xiaobai has transformed. Are you very happy? Li Mu said with lingering fear, What's there to be happy about? I was almost scared to death by her, and also by you, Lu Hanyan said bitterly. She was born so beautiful and wholeheartedly wanted to repay your kindness by giving herself to you. Li Mu glanced at her and said, Aren't you beautiful? Have some confidence in yourself. Lu Hanyan lowered her head and said, I know I'm not as beautiful as Xiaobai. She's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Li Mu stretched out his arms and pulled her into his embrace. He said, In my eyes, you're the most beautiful. No matter who you compare yourself to, you're always the most beautiful. Don't ever doubt this. Lu Hanyan made a soft sound of acknowledgement. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him gently on the cheek. She said, Come back soon. We'll wait for you at home. Li Mu returned her kiss before leaving the house and hurrying towards the yamen. Xiaobai's sudden transformation had caught him off guard and almost caused Lu Hanyan to misunderstand. Fortunately, it was more daunting than dangerous and he managed to get through it safely. The only pity was that after Xiaobai transformed, he couldn't always hold her in his arms and play with her like a cat. Not long after Li Mu left, Wanwan came running in with a lunchbox in her hand. The lunchbox contained the breakfast she had bought. When she saw the unfamiliar girl in the courtyard, she was stunned and asked in confusion, Miss, who are you looking for? Li Mu arrived late at the yamen's entrance. The young man named Lin Yu suddenly stretched out his hand and looked at the villager's eyelids and tongue. Finally, he leaned on the villager's chest and listened. His expression gradually became serious and he said, It's the plague. Chapter 155. Li Mu forced himself to save a few more people. Finally, he could not squeeze out a single drop of mana. Constable Zhao helped him sit down and handed him a piece of spiritual jade. The rest of the patients have mild symptoms. Their lives will not be in danger for the time being. You should recover your mana first. It won't be too late to save them later. Li Mu held the spiritual jade in his hand and meditated. At the same time, he was observing the psyche power in his body. This power was not like soul power and charisma, which could be refined directly by him. Instead, it was hidden in his body. After he rested for a while, a group of people walked in from outside the village. The village had been completely sealed off. An old official from the county government stood at the entrance of the village and said sternly, "Halt!" A stout man in official robes looked at him and said, "I am the county magistrate of Yang County. Is Constable Zhao here?" Constable Zhao walked out and saluted the stout man. "Greetings, County Magistrate Chen." County Magistrate Chen smiled and said, "There is no need to trouble Constable Zhao to come here personally for such a small matter." Constable Zhao said coldly, "If I didn't come here personally, County Magistrate Chen would have sealed off all the people in the village, wouldn't he?" County Magistrate Chen shook his head and said, "No one wanted such a thing to happen. Once the plague spreads, it will cause an even greater disaster. As a county magistrate, 100 or so lives are nothing compared to 1,000 or 10,000 lives. I have to look at the big picture. I believe that even the imperial court can understand my actions." Constable Zhao did not say much. Strictly speaking, County Magistrate Chen did not do anything wrong in this matter. However, as long as the local magistrate still had a conscience, he would not treat the lives of 100 or so people under his jurisdiction as a cold number. In his eyes, there was probably only political achievement. Constable Zhao said calmly, "The epidemic in this village has been controlled. There is still a way to save the plague. The county government will deal with the epidemic in Yang County. You don't have to worry about it anymore." County Magistrate Chen smiled and said, "That would be for the best. If Constable Zhao needs any help, just let me know." With that, he left with the group of yamen runners. The villagers knelt on the ground and kowtowed a few times to Li Mu and the others. The village chief breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you for saving our lives. Otherwise, the county magistrate would really let all of us die." Li Mu recovered his magic power and continued to save people. In the process of saving people, he learned that the county magistrate of Yang County did not have a good reputation in the county. The citizens were quite critical of him.